The night sea battered the hull of the cog like 1,000 mailed fists, each blow ringing through the timbers with a mournful groan that set Viserys' already frayed temper on edge. Rain slashed the decks in shimmering sheets, and lightning flared often enough to paint cruel silhouettes of Dragonstone's jagged-toothed towers looming ahead. Yet Daenerys Targaryen stood at the rail, sodden cloak plastered to her slight frame, transfixed by the island that had birthed her line's last desperate flame the night she was born. The cold bit to the bone, but she barely shivered. If the gods of wind and wave meant to test her resolve, she would meet them in silence. Viserys paced behind her like a half-caged cat, silver blonde hair slicked across his brow, eyes fever-bright. "We should have landed before dusk," he muttered for the 10th time. "Illyria's captains promised the tide." "The storm turned the tide," Daenerys answered, voice low yet steady. She did not turn. A crack of lightning spiked from cloud to water, illuminating Dragonstone's winding sea steps. Moss-lake and narrow, they vanished into the surf each time a swell reared. The very rocks seemed alive, snarling, unwilling to bow to invaders, even those returning to a long-lost home. Home Benaso. A word she had whispered to herself across a dozen coasts, each sounding false in her mouth until this dark hour. Dragonstone had been Rhaella's refuge when King's Landing fell, Daenerys' cradle amid fire and salt. Her earliest memory was of heat. Some insisted the birthing room's hearth had roared so fiercely it cracked the flagstones. Yet she remembered only the chant of wind beyond shuttered windows, and the faint scent of smoke-kissed milk. Dragonstone's ghosts had shaped her bones. Now she had come to claim them. "Look, little sister." Viserys seized her arm, fingers biting. "That fortress will be ours again, but only if we move swiftly. Once my banners fly, Storm's End will tremble, and the usurper's spies will scurry back to their master." She freed herself with quiet grace, rubbing the bruised flesh. "Dragonstone remembers Targaryen's brother, not spies." He laughed too sharp. But we are two with no army. No gold but what Illyrio lent us, and 3 stone eggs of questionable worth. Treat each step as battle." He glanced skyward as thunder rumbled. "Fetch your cloak tighter. You'll not cough yourself to death before I sit the Iron Throne." Daenerys pulled the heavy fabric closer, but kept her gaze fixed upon the steps. Another flash. She thought she saw movement at the landing, torchlight bobbing in pattern. Perhaps Sir Willem Darry's last sworn men still haunting the gatehouse. Yet Sir Willem had died a decade past, alone in Bravostad. Whoever awaited them tonight was new. A sudden calm fell, unnatural, as though the storm itself inhaled. Rain tapered to mist. The cog slid between black fangs of rock into a narrow channel, prow scraping barnacle-slick stone. Sailors leapt with lines to moor, muttering prayers in Lysine and Pantashi. Daenerys stepped onto the gangplank, boots finding uncertain purchase. Each slow stride felt ritual, a summoning. At her hip hung the cloth-wrapped satchel, heavy, resonant, where the dragon eggs lay nestled in lambswool and velvet. Illyrio's parting speech rang in her ears. 3 for 3 heads, Silver Princess. Do not sell them. Do not give them. Bring them home. He had not said hatch them, only bring. Perhaps he too thought them naught but costly relics for display in a Korth merchant's manse. Yet, sometimes, when Daenerys pressed her palm to the veined shells, a faint warmth answered. Flickering, fleeting. She had told no one. Viserys strode ahead, sword protruding from rain-soaked scabbard like a threatened fang. 2 lanterns emerged from the base of the sea steps. Men in boiled eider jerkins and faded crimson cloaks lifted the lights. One knelt as Viserys approached. "Your Grace." His low Valyrian carried the lilt of Lys. "Dragonstone heeds the blood of the dragon." Viserys' shoulders rolled back. "Who commands you?" "We were servants of Lord Staunton before he bent the knee to the usurper's stag." The Lysine kept his eyes lowered. "When the king died, the garrison splintered. Some sailed for King's Landing. 10 of us remained to watch the vaults. We have prayed for your return these many years." Prayers, Daenerys mused, were seeds cast on stone. Yet now and then one rooted. She stepped forward, and the Lycaene's gaze flicked to her, widening at the sight of silver hair and violet eyes. He bowed deeper. "Show us within," Viserys commanded. Torches sputtered along the spiral ascent. The sea steps twisted through dripping tunnel and open causeway alike, carved when Valyria's empire was young. Daenerys felt the island breathe around her. Warmth under stone skin, like coals slumbering. Rotating winds carried scents of brine, kelp, distant sulfur. Each echo of boot against basalt sounded deliberate, as though measured by unseen ears. They emerged onto a parapet overlooking Blackwater Bay. The storm's rear guard streaked southward. Moonlight spilled between ragged clouds to silver the sea. Far off, the soft glow of King's Landing pulsed like a wound. Viserys paused, nostrils flaring. "Soon, sister. Soon." Within, Dragonstone was gloom and memory. Empty hallways sighed beneath banners dull to bruised red. Dust thick as winter snow lay upon carved manticores and ebonwood screens. Even the dragons carved above archways seemed asleep, as though awaiting music to waken them. Their listening guide led them to the chamber of the painted table. Candles guttered in iron sconces, lighting the massive carved map of Westeros, Aegon's testament, in green and gold. The coastline shimmered under thin wax film, and Daenerys traced the narrow sea's scalloped rim with her eyes, ending where old Valyria's smoking ruins would be, if the table had room for distant continents. Viserys swept dust from the king's seat, though cobwebs remained netted in the high-backed crown of wood. He sank into it with a sigh, equal parts triumph and exhaustion. "Fetch mulled wine," he told the Lycaene, waving. "My sister is chilled, and a brazier. This hall is a crypt." The servant hurried away. Another remained, a girl near Daenerys' age, hair dyed a fading scarlet, eyes dark as obsidian. She held a padded box. "For the good queen," she whispered, offering the parcel. "I am no queen," Daenerys replied. But she accepted it. Within lay simple garments of velvet, deep Targaryen red, lined with fox fur, along with soft wool stockings and knee-high riding boots, polished to mirror sheen. A note pinned to the bodice. "The island remembers its mother." No signature. "That will do," said Viserys, gesturing dismissal. Servants withdrew, heels clicking into silence. Daenerys unpinned the note, folding it into her palm. She watched her brother map out conquest in his mind, eyes roving the painted table, and wondered when he had last eaten. Hunger made him cruel. He had been hungrier of late. She forced herself to speak gently. Dragonstone's cellars should hold preserves, perhaps smoked fish, pickled kelp, and the kitchens. In due time. He traced the riverlands with a finger streaking dust. The Starks hold the north. The Lannisters fill the usurper's coffers. But Renly has charm but no claim. The realm will splinter when Robert dies. Our dragons, your dragons, will mend that fracture. Dindoel. At the word dragons, Daenerys' heart quickened. She placed the satchel upon the edge of the map. Wax pooled near the eggs as she unwrapped them one by one. Black, glimmering with red whorls like molten lava under obsidian. Cream streaked with gold as bright as sunrise. Green bronze speckled like summer moss after rain. The candlelight caressed them, scales catching glints that shifted as though alive. Viserys bent, fascination diluting ambition for a moment. "Beautiful," he breathed. He touched the emerald egg, recoiled slightly. "Hot." "They grow warmer each day," she said. He straightened. "Old tales claim heat awakens them. Perhaps we must cast them into fire, as Aegon Smith's tempered steel in dragon flame. Perhaps." She recalled Illyrio spinning stories of sorcerers, pyres, and blood. "Dragons hatch to death, and life intertwined, princess." But no Khal Drogo rode at her side now. No pyre promised transformation. Only the ancient halls of her house and the slow pulse of the island's heart. Viserys strode around the table. "We should descend to the caverns." The 14 flames once fed Valyrian hatcheries. Dragonstone's vents may serve. His gaze hardened. "Tomorrow at first light. Tonight, rest, gather strength." Daenerys nodded, though her blood stirred with restless turning of wings. She lay in a narrow chamber overlooking the courtyards, where sea wind raked broken flagstones. Lightning had banished the storm. Stars kindled, bright and sharp. She had placed the 3 eggs upon a cushion by the hearth. Flames guttered low, coals breathing soft crimson. Her cloak steamed upon a chair. She, wrapped in a linen shift, crouched before the eggs, fingers exploring mosaic patterns under whisper-light strokes. The black-hand scarlet egg vibrated. It was faint, almost illusory. She drew her hand away, pulse thrumming in response. Again her palm settled, and the vibration ceased, warmth ebbing into silence. She exhaled. The room smelled of smoke and salt and the musk of old stone. Beyond the window, waves crashed, answering some unseen drum. A memory surfaced, Sir Willem's lullabies. Born beneath the dragon's call, the last light of summer shall herald fall. She had been too small to grasp the words, yet the cadence lingered. She hummed now, voice low, wavering. The eggs drank the sound, or so she imagined, their scales shimmering briefly. Wind rattled shutters. She rose and secured the hasp. But, returning, she found the cream hand gold egg tipped onto its side. She had set them steady. The hearthlight flickered. No hand could have moved it. No breeze reached the cushion. Her breath caught. Carefully she nudged it upright. Hotter, yes. Each scale held warmth equal to fresh-drawn bath water. She whispered in Valyrian, tongue of her ancestors. Zaldratzes, she crooned. Shiratad. A nonsense lullaby. Yet the syllables glowed. She imagined flame coiling within shell, eager, impatient. She remembered Drogo's hands upon her belly, the son they buried beneath the red waste, and grief stabbed anew. Fire takes, and fire gives. If new life awaited here, she would anchor it with every beat of her heart. When sleep came, it carried dreams veiled in ember haze. She walked corridors lit by torches of living fire. Doors of iron parted. A cavern yawned, molten rivers threading black mazes. In their glow, she saw 3 shadows unfurling wings, long necks craning toward her, eyes smoldering. They chirped like hungry sparrows, yet each note shook mountains. Daenerys knelt. Tiny claws gripped her arms, drawing pinpricks of blood. Their warmth was a tidal wave. Their fragrance, brimstone and sunrise. One nuzzled her cheek. Cooler than expected, scaled like velvet. She felt its heart racing, as frantic as hers. Then the cavern cracked, seawater rushed in, moonlight cut the dark, dragons shrieked. She woke with a cry, sweat cooling fast. Silence cloaked the chamber. Hearth embers glowed faint. She drew breath, listening. Waves beyond, the creak of beams, distant footfalls. Perhaps Viserys prowling. Yet another sound rose, a faint crackling, soft as a crust of ice beneath boot. She slid from bed, padded toward the cushion. A fissure snaked across the black egg's crown. Daenerys' fingers trembled. She knelt, palms hovering. The heat was stronger, bright even without light. She swallowed. Viserys, she called, scarcely louder than wind. No answer. The crack lengthened. A second spidered across the green bronze shell in reply. Then the cream gold quivered, brittle sounds multiplying. It happened in harmony, as if some conductor unseen counted beats. 1, 2, 3. Shatter. A sliver of shell fell away from the obsidian egg, revealing glistening onyx scale beneath, wet and pulsing. The hatchling within wriggled, snout budding for release, chirping in rasping notes that stole Daenerys' breath. She dared not touch, though the urge consumed her. Another chip fell from the green egg, then another. Long cracks radiated like dawn's first light. The bronze scales beneath glowed with internal furnace. Steam curled where cooler air kissed warm fluid. The cream hand gold egg split lengthwise, a seam that blossomed into a jagged rift. A wing unfolded, ivory membrane veined in gold, delicate as parchment yet trembling with power. The hatchling shrieked, a high keen that reverberated through stone and marrow alike. Daenerys pressed a hand to her chest, tears rising unbidden. "I'm here," she whispered. The black hatchling burst free in a tumble of shards, slick head rearing, ember eyes fixing on her. Its nostrils flared. Smoke wisped. It chirped again, softer now, and dragged its belly across the cushion toward her knee. Talons left streaks of blood-warm liquid on velvet. A sudden instinct overtook her. She extended her arms. The creature climbed, claws pricking but not tearing. It coiled about her forearm, tail, encircling wrist. Its smell was furnace heat and mineral tang, like fresh-struck iron. The bronzy green followed, heftier, wings wider though still tiny. It flew awkwardly, claws scraping tapestry as it reached her shoulder. It perched, shaking droplets, head cocked in curiosity. Its eyes were bright as sunset over Dothraki grass. Last emerged the pale dragon, smallest yet fastest. It scrambled up her gown, nipping the fabric to anchor itself. Upon reaching her collarbone, it spread wings, emitting a soft trill. She felt each note resonate through bone, as though her heartstrings had tuned to their pitch. 3 dragons clung to their mother. For the moment she embraced them, they knew her, and she knew them, thrumming pulse for pulse. From the corridor came a thunder of boots. The door banged open. Viserys stumbling across the threshold, torch in hand, 2 listening guards behind. His eyes took in the shattered shells, the newborn beasts glistening against Daenerys' skin. The torch sputtered, casting wild shadows of wing and fang upon damp stone. Viserys gaped. By all the gods! Awe bled swiftly into covetous hunger. He stepped forward, free hand extended. The black dragon hissed, wings flaring though no larger than a raven's. Viserys halted. "They," he swallowed. "They are ours, sweet sister. We did it." Daenerys rose slowly. Her gown clung with hatchling fluids, her hair coiled down her back, silver catching torchlight. Dragons adjusted positions, black at her right forearm, bronze on left shoulder, cream nestled at her throat. Their combined heat warmed her like summer noon. She regarded her brother across the hush. Something fundamental had shifted in that moment, tectonic as the doom. The island's walls seemed to lean inward, listening. Viserys saw it too. Some flicker in his countenance betrayed that he understood his place in the constellation had altered, though he did not yet know how. He forced a smile brittle as dry parchment. "Tomorrow, the realm will know the dragon has 3 heads." Daenerys touched the black hatchling's chin. It chuffed. She spoke not to Viserys but to the night itself, and a mother. Dawn bled rose gold through high windows of the great hall, warming spindrift that drifted in on the breeze. Word had traveled like wildfire. Dragons reborn. 10 Lysane and 3 Westerosi deserters knelt before the dais, pledging swords and silence. The painted table bore scorch marks where Daenerys had placed her children, allowing them to bask upon its sunlit surface. They trilled and rattled wings, exploring carved valleys, pouncing upon shadow mice cast by candlelight. Viserys addressed the kneeling men, voice ringing against vaulted ceilings. "Before this moon wanes, banners of black and red will rise across Storm's End and Driftmark. The usurper's spies shall drown in their own treachery. You serve the king, your true king, Viserys the third of his name." Daenerys stood to his left, dragons arrayed upon her. She heard his words but felt removed, hearts beating in her ears that were not her own. Each hatchling's pulse overlapped with hers, chorus of living drums. She realized with sudden clarity, there would come a day when these halls could not contain their wings. Viserys finished, and the men rose, murmuring oaths. Servants scurried to lay trestle tables with cold meats and coarse bread. The black dragon, already bold, flapped to a platter, snatching a sliver of fish. Its siblings followed, creating a chorus of delighted chirps. Laughter rippled. Nervous, joyous. Men who had once doubted now stared with reverence. Viserys raised a goblet, but his hand trembled. Daenerys watched him, empathy mingling with somber foreboding. Power had come, but it had not come to him alone. He saw that too. Later, in the rookery's warmth, Maester Kelvin, a gray-bearded Westerosi who had declared loyalty at dawn, examined the hatchlings with cautious fascination. They should feast on meat thrice daily, he advised. They will grow quickly if the legends hold. Yet growth must be tempered. Bones harden with flame, I am told. We have scrolls in the vault, illegible to most, but perhaps your grace reads Valyrian runes. Nah. Did he? Some, Daenerys answered. She stroked bronze scales. The dragon burbled, nuzzling her hand with its horned brow. Then we shall study together. The maester bowed and withdrew. A hush remained once he left, broken only by distant gull cries. Outside, the sea glimmered glassy, hushed after the storm. She carried the dragons to a balcony where warm sun pooled. They crawled along the balustrade, wings stretched, sniffing the salty wind. Below, surf lapped rocks, and cormorants swooped low. Daenerys inhaled sea air deep into her lungs. Memory stirred, of Korth's perfumed gardens, of V's Dothric spice winds. Yet nothing matched this. Dragonstone smelled of origin. She closed her eyes, arms resting on stone, warmed by dawn. The black hatchling attempted its first leap, wings beating, but fluttered onto her palm instead. She laughed softly, so fierce, yet small still. Her voice lilted in Valyrian. Dragon. The word came unbidden, echo of her lost sun-hand stars. It suited him. The bronze she named, Rahagel, green as the field where Rhaegar died. The cream-hand gold she christened Viserion, a gift to her brother, or perhaps a reminder. She whispered each name thrice, sealing them. Drogon preened. Viserion yawned, needle teeth shining. Rhaegel stared seaward, eyes narrowing as though reading the horizon. A scrape of boots approached. Daenerys turned to find the scarlet-haired handmaid who brought her garments. The girl bowed. My queen. Sailors report a galley sighted rounding Massey's Hook. Baratheon golden antlers on green sails. They make for Blackwater. Dean? Not for Dragonstone? Not yet, my queen. The girl's eyes flicked to the dragons, wonder plain. But the sea is ever watchful. Daenerys considered. Robert's reach was long. No rumor traveled without coin in its pocket. Word of hatchlings would spread by gull and fishmonger and drunken sailor by nightfall. She stroked Drogon's ridge. We must strengthen the island. Ramparts, larders, cisterns. Viserys appeared in the doorway, anger simmering behind tight smile. Leave us, he told the handmaid. She fled. He approached Daenerys, gaze shifting between her and the dragons. Our next move must be bold. Aegon flew from Dragonstone with only Balerion, Vhagar, and Araxes. So shall we fly? They cannot yet bear our weight, Daenerys replied gently. Then we will wait 2 moons no more. We will raid the Kingswood. Scores will rally at first sight. His voice trembled with desire. Daenerys faced him fully. Drogon hissed. Viserys flinched, then forced a laugh. Brother, she began. You will not brother me when you look upon me with pity. I look with care. We share the blood of the dragon. But they, she nodded to the hatchlings, have bound to me first. Viserys' jaw clenched. They are mine, as you are mine. You swore so on Khal Drogo's pyre. I swore nothing on that pyre but to find the strength within me. Her voice softened. We are united by purpose. The Iron Throne will demand swords and dragons alike. Let us rule together, as Aegon with his sisters. He swallowed, tension easing marginally at the threat of inclusion. Yes, yes, the realm will bow to both of us. His eyes lingered on Drogon, calculating. But the people must see their king atop a beast of flame, not skulking in crumbling halls. When they growl, they will choose their riders, she said. Viserys reached, fingers brushing Viserion's tail. The hatchling snapped, tiny, but teeth sliced a bead of blood. Viserys jerked. Drogon hissed anew. His expression darkened. But before words could sharpen into knives, horns sounded from the yard. Alert, urgent. Both turned toward the sound. Daemon Waters, a lithe sail-wearing half-rusted male, clattered up the steps. A black sail flies below, he announced, panting. One of the usurper's galleys alters course. It turns for Dragonstone now. Viserys' eyes blazed. The usurper dares. Daenerys gathered her hatchlings, 3 sets of claws pricking lightly. She felt their hearts quicken, resonating with her own. "Perhaps he smells weakness," she said quietly. "Let us show him fire." Viserys bared teeth. "To armory, crossbowmen to the seawall. Load scorpions. If he brings more than 1 ship, we withdraw to the vents." Daemon's brow furrowed. "The vents." Viserys brushed past. "The king commands. Move." Daemon went, boots ringing. Daenerys followed more slowly. Dragons arrayed. In the passageways, torches flared, casting erratic light. Men hurried with spears, fletched bolts, barrels of pitch. The air tasted of imminent fury. Descending spiral stairs, she felt the island's pulse intensify, core heat rising. Drogon and Rhaegal chirped impatiently. Viserions' wings trembled in short test strokes. They sensed battle, or perhaps sensed Dragonstone's volcanic soul stirring. Mid to tower, a small courtyard opened south. Through arrow slits, Daenerys glimpsed the galley cresting a wave. Black hull, golden antlers upon green sail. A single warship, yet its timbers glinted fresh, oars slicing foam. They had come swiftly, perhaps bearing only a messenger, or an assassin. Viserys emerged on the battlement above, shouting orders. Crossbows creaked. Sailors manned catapults loaded with casks of wildfire recovered from ancient stores. The Lysine stood ready with torches. Wind whipped Daenerys' hair across her eyes. She brushed it back, dragons clutching as she paced the parapet. The newborns stared seaward, necks craning, nostrils flaring. She felt their desire. Sky, flame, hunt. "Not yet," she murmured, soothing strokes along their backs. They chirped, uneasy. The war galley halted at a respectful distance, sail furling. A lone skiff deployed bearing 3 men in black cloaks trimmed gold. One held a horn, another, a white flag. The third rode, muscles straining. They approached the sea steps, ignoring weapons aimed. Viserys called down, "State your purpose." The man with the horn raised head. Wind revealed salt dark hair, and a face scored by old scars. He cupped hands. "I bring terms from King Robert Baratheon. Robert sits a stolen throne." Viserys spat. "We answer with dragonfire." The messenger's gaze shifted to Daenerys, widening as he spotted hatchlings. Terror mingled with awe. He bowed from the skiff. "Then my life is forfeit, yet hear me. The king offers clemency if you quit the realm by sunrise." Viserys laughed, brittle. "Tell your false king his reign ends with this night." The messenger stared a moment longer, perhaps imprinting the impossible sight of living dragons. Then signaled. The rowers spun the skiff. Viserys turned to Daenerys. "We cannot allow them to flee. Their tongues will wag." Daenerys met his eyes. "The choice is made already." Viserys barked to the nearest archer. A bolt hissed, striking the messenger's shoulder, spinning him overboard. Crossbowmen loosed upon the skiff. Oarsmen fell. Water churned red. The war galley, seeing slaughter, unfurled sail in panic. Catapult arms released. Green wildfire jars arced, shattering against deck planks. Flame blossomed emerald, dancing devil sprites. Men screamed. The ship ignited, mast engulfed, canvas curling to ash. In minutes, only charred ribs stabbed from the sea like obscene sculpture. Daenerys watched, face expressionless. Drogon's stretched neck, exhaling a puff of smoke no larger than a candle flame. Rhaegal beat wings, leapt from her arm, gliding clumsily before landing upon parapet. Viserion clung still, chirping softly. "Victory," Viserys murmured, chest heaving. He looked to the burning shape, lust shining in his gaze. "Our first." Daenerys felt no triumph, only inevitability. War had found them. War would cling to them as claws did now. But she had weapons born of fire, and she would not hide. She turned from the blaze toward the heart of Dragonstone, where ancient forges lay dormant. Her children sang quietly, as though already dreaming of the skies they would one day paint with flame. Night fell again, but no storm followed. Dragonstone's courtyards bustled with fresh purpose. Smiths hammered rust from old breastplates. Servants scrubbed tapestries. The dragons nested beneath braziers, absorbing heat, occasionally snapping at sparks like playful pups. Maester Kelvin noted their growth in measured script. Wingspan increased 2 inches since dawn, claws sharper, appetite voracious. In a high chamber overlooking the island's inner caldera, Daenerys convened with Viserys, Kelvin, Daemon Waters, and the scarlet-haired handmaid Shara. Maps littered a round table. Coastal villages, supply routes, ravenry flight paths. Candlelight flickered across them like restless ghosts. "I want eyes in the gullet," Daenerys said, tapping a cove. Fisherfolk gossip travels swiftly along trade wakes. "Offer silver for true whispers." Kelvin nodded. "Ravens as well, my queen. Old sigil seals still hold weight." Viserys lounged, sipping wine. "We should raid the crownlands. Show farmers their rightful king protects them." "Protection, not fear," Daenerys corrected quietly. Viserys' grin widened. "Fear keeps swords sheathed." She allowed the matter to rest. For now. Focus sharpened on logistics. Grain stores in Sharp Point, or shipments from Blackhaven. Secret alleys across stepstones, where sell sales awaited coin. The meeting unfurled like a tapestry, thread after thread of possibility weaving into strategy. Yet beneath each plan beat the unspoken truth. 3 dragons, though small, changed all reckonings. They need only survive, grow, and each moon's turning would tilt the balance further. When at last the council dispersed, Daenerys lingered upon the balcony. The night sky shimmered with stars. Drogon perched beside her, wings outstretched to catch sea breezes. Red membranes glowing translucent in torchlight. Rhaegal dozed atop the parapet. Viserion clung to her braid, soft snores rustling hair. She spoke to them in Valyrian, words spilling like water. She told them of Rhaegar's songs, of King's Landing spires, of the sept bells that rang the day her brother died. She told them of Drogo, of the Red Waste, of moons and mabesons. She promised them skies free of chains, fields of prey, rivers broad and glittering. She named them again: Drogon, Rhaegal, Viserion. Each responded with soft rumble, echoing their names back in notes only she could parse. And she swore a vow, not to iron or throne, nor to brother or realm, but to fire itself. "I will be the mother who does not fail." Below, waves beat eternal cadence upon basalt cliffs, as if clapping approbation. Above, comets unseen by mortal eyes streaked through the black, hurled from heavens older than Valyria. Dragonstone dreamed while dragons nuzzled their mother's heart, and the world beyond, unaware, unready, spun toward the dawn of fire. Kain, Unikai. Moonrise paled the eastern edge of the sky to milk and pearl well before the garrison's watch bell sang the change of hour. But Daenerys had been awake since the first faint hoot of the nightjars that roosted in Dragonmont's crags. She sat cross-legged on a tapestry spread across the floor of the chamber, once kept for Aegon's eldest sister, Visera, a room round as a coin, its walls of black stone mottled with shimmering flecks of obsidian. All 3 hatchlings occupied the space in whirring commotion. Drogon, largest by breadth of chest and broadest of wing, chased sparks that drifted from the brazier. Each time he leapt, the membrane of his wings cut the air with the soft clap of a leather glove snapped open. Rhaegal preferred altitude. He would scramble up the chairbacks, hop across shelves, and glide down upon cushion piles, trilling triumphantly at each successful landing. Viserion remained the explorer, slipping beneath cupboards and rattling through cedar chests no one had thought worth unlocking since the Mad King's coronation. Periodically, he emerged dragging something wondrous. Once a dried lemon, once a ball of tarnished chainmail so dense it nearly outweighed him, and just before dawn, a child-sized wooden shield painted with the faded sigil of a seahorse. All 3 clacked teeth upon the rim, until slivers of paint littered the tapestry like confetti. Daenerys observed silently, every sense steeped in quiet elation and sharper responsibility. A few hours' play tired them, Already they yawned, little throats flicking tongues that felt hotter than human skin should dare touch. She coaxed them toward the wide basin of charcoal placed beside the hearth and poured diced cod her handmaid had fetched from the galley. They devoured fish with quick jerks of their narrow heads, then flopped in the embers to sleep, bellies glowing faintly. She left them at last to the watch of Shara, trusting the girl's deftness after 2 days of careful lessons, and stepped into Dragonstone's corridor. A scent hung on the air, sulfur and damp earth, a reminder of deep fires stirring beneath the fortress. The passage curved gently upward, lanterns guttering at intervals whose oil she had demanded stay full through every night. Dragons preferred warmth, but people needed light. She climbed until she reached an open gallery ringed by gargoyles, whose wings had long ago worn to nubs. Dawn painted the world in copper. Below, fishing smacks tilted at anchor inside the island's horseshoe harbor. Beyond them, the sea lay calm, deceptive in its peace. Viserys stood alone at the balustrade, cloak unlined and blowing raggedly. He had not heard her approach. From behind he looked older than his Wohan 20 years. Shoulders hunched forward, pale hair uncombed, hands clenched so hard his knuckles blanched. That stillness concerned her more than last night's fevered boasts. She cleared her throat. He turned, mask snapping to place. The ready smile a swordsmith hammers thin until it cuts both wielder and foe. "You rise before the gulls," he said. "Sleep wanders," she replied. He gestured to the south. "Smoke yet hovers where the galley burned. Robert's harbor rats will sniff that wreck before long." A flicker of satisfaction flared in his eyes. Proof delivered upon the tide that dragons live. "Robert has ravens enough without ours," she said softly. Viserys sniffed, measuring her tone. A reminder that fear is a sharper herald than rumor. She leaned beside him. "Fear unbridled breeds resistance. Better the realm hungers for us than dreads us." He blew out a hard breath. "They must dread me, Dany. They must remember how Rhaegar died upon the trident, trampled beneath Robert's hammer. Only terror and fire can rewrite that song." He paused, tight lines bracketing his mouth. "I dreamt again last night, a father's throne room ablaze, swords melting, the 7 statues weeping gold. I heard of a voice, mine yet not mine, naming me Aegon Reborn." The admission slipped past caution. She recognized the danger of it. A prophecy of the ego rather than of the world. She set a palm on his sleeve. "Come walk with me. The dragons soon wake. Their presence may soothe your dream's shadows." He stiffened, but after a moment nodded. Together, they descended. The hatchlings greeted Viserys with a hiss so mild it bordered on polite curiosity. He tried to stroke Drogon's neck. The dragon tolerated one touch before purring deep in its barrel chest. Viserys' face cracked into an almost boyish grin. Daenerys felt a thin hope kindle. Perhaps wonder yet might steer him from the precipice of his fears. Maester Kelvin appeared after the first bell to escort them to the library vaults, cut into the mountain's heart. When the great iron-bound doors opened, heat brushed their faces. Warm air rising through volcanic vents threaded beneath the archives. Racks of scrolls and lacquered chests slumbered in half-light, untouched since Steffan Baratheon's ill-fated tenure as Lord of the Island. Kelvin led them past dust-thick ladders toward a low alcove, marked by Valyrian runes. "Here," he said, voice gravelly with excitement, "lie surviving fragments of De Draconum Elementis, the elements of dragons. Lord Orys Baratheon ordered much of it defaced, yet pieces remain." Daenerys drew a leather roll from the shelf. Mold spotted the hide, but when she unbound the thong, the vellum within showed only faint freckles of decay. Dense lettering marched in minuscule Valyrian, more complex than any text Sir Willem had taught her. Still, she pronounced the title softly, savoring its taste, of the fundament and the flame, of scale and seed. She carried the scroll to a trestle where a brass globe of candles offered generous light. As she bent to study the script, Rhaegal fluttered from her shoulder onto the table, talons clicking. He curled around the scroll, green tail flicking as though intent on guarding the words. Kelvin produced tongs and lifted a lump of smoldering rock from a brazier set in the floor. "Basalt direct from the vent," he explained. Note their response, your graces." The rock gave off a faint hiss. Drogon waddled close, nostrils flaring. With a sudden snap of neck, he seized the stone in his jaws. Steam blossomed from the contact. Drogon released a surprised chirrup, but did not let go. Instead, he worried the stone like a wolf cub with marrow, chewing until red veins glowed between his teeth. At length he gulped shards, smoke curling from jaw corners. Viserion and Rhaegal watched, intrigued but hesitant. Kelvin's beard twitched in a half-a smile. They crave mineral heat as infants crave mother's milk. It aids bone fusion. He nodded at Daenerys. Soon you'll supplement Firestone with bone ash and goat's blood. Viserys grimaced. We are not kennel masters. Yet stable lords once fed dragons thus, the maester replied. Better early strength than stunted growth. Viserys' impatience simmered. But Daenerys spoke first. Show me every record of husbandry. I will prepare what they need. Jaden summoned. So began a quiet rhythm that carried them through the next fortnight. Each dawn Daenerys rose, tended dragons, consulted Kelvin's instructions, then oversaw repairs to seawalls or counted crossbow bolts with demon waters. She ate quickly, light meals of oat bread and smoked perch, too absorbed for heavier fare. Evenings she studied Valyrian treatises, deciphering glyphs that spoke of heat cycles, sky muscle development, bonding rites performed once by dragon seeds in ancient Driftmark. Nights she slept fitfully, flanked by warm bodies no larger than hound pups, yet pulsing with furnace heartbeats. Viserys, meanwhile, orchestrated raids along the narrow coast. He led 50 men to a smuggler's cove near Crackclaw Point, seized 2 cogs loaded with barley and salt pork, and returned draped in captured banners. The first time he strode into Dragonstone's courtyard bearing a stag split by a sword, men cheered. The second, they cheered but with wary glances at Drogon gliding above Daenerys' head. They understood which figure stirred hope, which stoked fear. On the 12th day, a distant horn sounded from the watchtower. Sails approaching. By chance, Daenerys stood upon the western barbican with Rhaegal perched upon her leather-gloved arm. She shaded her eyes. Sunlight dazzled on white pennants stitched with silver seahorse, the arms of House Velaryon. 3 swift-hulled galleys rode the swell, oars stowed, trusting lean masts to wind. The lead ship flew a square banner. 3 seahorses surmounted by a dragon's wing. An unheard pulse quickened in Daenerys' veins. Such heraldry meant only one intent. Parley dot guy. She instructed the horn to sound welcome, and watched crews guide the strangers into mooring. An hour later, she descended to the sea steps flanked by Shara and 2 spearwives, newly sworn. Drogon circled overhead, shadow sweeping waves. At the landing stood a tall woman armored in pearl-lined scales that shimmered with every shift of tide. Her hair, pale as moonsand, coiled in ropes about her shoulders. She carried a trident chased with electrum. "I am Oran Velaryon," the woman announced, voice clear above surf. "Youngest daughter of Munford Velaryon, Lord of the Tides. You know our bloodline. Cousins thrice removed to your own. I seek audience with the Mother of Dragons." Daenerys inclined her head. "You have found her." Oran's sea-green eyes flicked upward where Drogon banked, then settled on the smaller dragon roosting at Daenerys' forearm. She knelt, trident point to stone. Driftmark bends knee. "My father bids me bear ships and men, provisions for 6 moons, in exchange for oaths of mutual aid when your dragons reach the skies of war." Daenerys weighed the words, listening for unspoken currents. Velaryons had carved dominion on sea and salt for centuries. Yet their fortunes waned since Robert rewarded Stannis with Dragonstone. Lord Munford might gamble on Targaryen resurgence to reclaim ancient pride. "Rise," she said. "Walk with me." They climbed through dripping tunnels till they emerged in the courtyard, where Drogon swept low to land on a half-repaired parapet. Workmen scattered. Owain watched with a fear-bright smile. 3 galleys sail bold for Dragonstone, Daenerys said. "What if Stannis' fleet shadowed you?" "We outpaced them," Owain replied. "Our keels are carved for speed." A pause. "Yet I will not pretend we come without peril." Stannis starved off laughter, as sailors name him. laces Blackwater Bay with patrols. We slipped at dusk and hugged the winds, trusting storms to mask our wake. She drew a scroll from an oilskin pouch. These are lists, numbers, tonnage, names of captains and their blood ties. My father signs them in his own hand. Daenerys read. Ink glittered still wet. Provisions enough to feed 400 mouths. Your father buys alliance with sure coin. Oraine's grin crooked. My father buys hope. She gestured to Drogon. He longs to see wings over the narrow sea again. Daenerys closed the scroll. We share that longing. She extended both hands, palms forward. A gesture from the free cities, meaning open trade, open heart. Oraine mirrored it. Shara stepped forward, produced a slender ribbon of crimson silk, and bound their wrists together. Kelvin's chronicles had described a rite of blood and brine once sworn between sea dragons and sky dragons. Daenerys improvised its echo. She pricked her thumb with a clasp pin, allowed a drop of blood to soak the silk. Oraine did the same. Salt wind dried each drop before they could mingle, binding them not by mingling, but by the promise of mingling later, when victory poured like tidewater into all the world's cracks. That evening, Dragonstone feasted upon Valyrian stores. Barrels of smoked eel, sacks of Old Town spices, casks of fresh-pressed arbor red. Torches ringed the practice yard. A dais of salvaged planks became a makeshift table, where Daenerys sat flanked by Oraine and Viserys. Musicians, 3 pipers, a fiddler, and a Lysine drum girl, played lively salt-hair reels. Dragons roamed the rafters, occasionally diving to snatch sizzling morsels from unsuspecting platters. Laughter followed each thievery. Even the most hardened sellsword appeared willing to excuse dragonish appetites. Viserys drank deeply. Wine flushed his cheeks. At one point, he leaned across Oraine, eyes glassy. Tell me, Lady of Driftmark, how many swords follow your trident? 300 sworn sea knights, 70 archers, thrice that number of deckhands who can swing an axe. She answered. Viserys sniffed. What worth is an axe against castles? An axe hews masts, Oraine said evenly, and harbors fat with grain. Starve a castle, it falls. Viserys opened his mouth for riposte, but a shriek overhead silenced the yard. Drogon spiraled across the torches to land beside Daenerys' high seat, tail coiling round its legs. He fixed the assembly with molten eyes. Silence spread, interrupted only by the pop of resonant braziers. Daenerys stroked his jaw ridge, fingers coming away warm and slick with eel fat. Rest, my darling, she murmured. Drogon blinked, content, then hopped to the table's edge and inveigled a hunk of roasted boar. Viserys' gaze narrowed. Daenerys saw jealousy coil inside him as surely as a viper preparing to strike. But the moment passed when musicians struck a new tune and men raised cups anew. Later night's hush returned. Daenerys excused herself early, carrying the sated dragons cradled in a coal-lined basket. She paused outside the great hall, hearing Viserys call for yet another cask. Tomorrow he would wake sour and aching. She doubted he grasped the thin thread upon which his authority swung. Already Selzord whispers named Daenerys the sun at Dragonstone's heart. In her chamber she laid the hatchlings upon heated slate slabs and unrolled De Draconum Elementus to the next passage. Her translation faltered on a phrase, "Only blood unbroken may fly unburnt." She traced the curling script, mind tugging at its weave. Blood unbroken, blood pure, or blood unbroken by fear. She thought of Drogon gulping Ventstone, ingesting the island's heart to forge his own. Perhaps dragons required not merely ancestry but something truer, an unfractured will. She dipped a quill and copied the line onto fresh parchment, adding notes in the margin. Bond, courage, sacrifice. Then, noticing her eyelids droop, she closed the ink, banked the fire, and lay between silk sheets. Sleep took her swiftly but without dream. The dream waited 2 nights. When it came fierce. She stood upon a narrow bridge spanning clouds lit from below by crimson glow. The bridge wobbled, bone struts for beams, sinew for rope. Ahead, an armored figure beckoned, face hidden in hammered bronze wrought to resemble a dragon snarling. Behind, Waves of darkness lapped, carrying echoes of bells tolling the city's death. She could not move. Then Drogon shot past, wings quadrupled in size, blazing like the black sun of eclipse. He seized the bridge in his talons and lifted it whole. Daenerys clung as stars wheeled. She glimpsed city walls shaped like swords, rivers flowing upward into sky, and a single heart, hers, aflame like a red lantern. Her scream became roar. She woke, gasping, throat raw. Morning greeted her with gray drizzle. A dispatch awaited. Daemon Waters' longboat had captured another Baratheon courier near the headland, bearing sealed letters for Stannis at Storm's End. One bore the seal of King Robert's hand, the Lion of Lannister. Inside, terse lines demanded constant vigilance. News speaks of wings. The letter ordered Storm's End's lord to scour every isle from the Wendwater up to Gullet for sign of the Dragon Woman. It gave Stannis leave to employ burning ships should he locate her. Viserys bristled. They mean to trap us here. They fear us here, Daenerys replied. She regirded the parchment. Fear misguides men to rashness. Let us remain quiet ghosts until dragons fill the sky. Quiet, alas, did not suit her brother. The very next tide he outfitted two of Valerion's sleek galleys, Sea Song and Nereid's Teeth, with scorpions and pitch jars, intent on harrying the Kingswood coast. Owain counseled caution. Viserys ignored her. He sailed with 60 men, swearing to return within the week. Before departure, he requested the loan of Drogon to perch upon the mast like standard of dread. Daenerys refused gently but firmly. His smile cracked a little more. He sailed at dawn's break. By dusk, he had not cleared viewing range. A contrary wind forced the ships to anchor within sight of the island, while crews labored to reef sails flapping like wounded birds. Daenerys watched from the sea tower with Viserion nested in her hair. She could almost sense her brother's frustration riding the gusts. She whispered a plea to the winds to break kinder. But the winds answer only themselves. 3 days passed. Storms harried the horizon. Galleys hove back limping, sails shredded. Viserys returned ashore dripping fury. He stormed the yard, slapped 2 oarsmen for imagined sloth, and demanded Kelvin bring draughts to chase fever he claimed the sea had gifted him. That night, enraged, he sought Daenerys in the hatchery ranges. Shara intercepted him, but Viserys thrust her aside. He strode among brazier troughs, dragons stirring in alarm. Why do they obey you and not me? He spat, cheeks blotched. I am their king. Drogon rose from a mound of cinders, wings mantling. Shadows doubled his size. Viserys hesitated but pressed on. Khal Drogo has been dead long enough. My sister's debt remains unpaid. I will ride at their head or none will. Daenerys stood between him and the dragon. You are ill, brother. Rest. He drew the whip he had taken from a Dothraki slave market years ago. Its lash-plated horsehair tipped with bronze barb. He flicked it at Drogon, not striking, yet close enough to sting the sulphurous air. The dragon responded in kind. A cough of orange flame belched from its narrow jaw. It lasted no longer than a heartbeat, scorched no flesh, but heat rippled even through Daenerys' padded sleeve. Viserys reeled back, eyes wide. Smoke curled round Drogon's hornlets. Silence thickened. Daemon Waters, roused by Shara, entered with 6 armsmen. Their presence tipped the moment from private to public. Viserys saw witnesses, and panic claimed him. Panic that bristled into rage. He brandished the whip, but this time looped it over his own shoulders, in a gesture bizarrely self-punishing. Then, trembling, he bolted from the hall. Daemon exhaled tension. Your Grace, shall I escort him to quarters? Let Maester Kelvin tend him, she said, though doubt tugged. Could any tonic temper the storm whirling within her brother's skull? Viserys did not emerge next day. Fever indeed welded him to a sweat-soaked palate. Kelvin brewed willow bark and lemon draught, while Shara sponged his brow. Daenerys sat with him in hushed hours, recounting memories of their childhood flight from Bravos to Myr, from Myr to Tyrosh, memories she wove now into soothing tapestry. At times he squeezed her hand, eyes lucid, whispering apologies. At others, fever returned, and he muttered of thrones made of knives and sisters forged of snow. Drogon refused to leave her side, curling at the foot of the bed like a watchhound, whose bite promised far more than bark. When fever broke on the fourth dawn, Viserys slept deep. Dragonstone exhaled one collective breath. They hardly had exhaled when new peril arrived, transmuted into flesh. A group of 6 knights from House Massey rode the tide to parley, claiming desire to swear fealty. But Demon Waters doubted their sudden piety. He placed them under guard while Daenerys greeted them in the painted table chamber. Drogon perched upon a pillar above. Sir Lorne Massey, eldest of the 6, removed his helm to reveal a balding pate and eyes disarmingly mild. He bent knee readily. "Your Grace, our hearts bleed Baratheon black no longer. Dragon wings lighten conscience and brighten future." Behind courtesy, Daenerys sensed calculation. She studied them, noting fine green wool-trimmed sable, sabers polished yet boots spattered by fresh mud. A sign of hurried ride. "You traveled fast for a change of allegiance." "Word reached us of 3 beasts reborn," the Sir answered. "We would not see our children's children chained to burning thrones." She circled the table. "And what message do you carry from Lord Massey?" Sir Lorne hesitated a beat too long. Drogon hissed. Shadows seemed to thicken around the knight's ankles. He swallowed. "None, Your Grace. Only hearts in hope." He attempted a smile. It curdled. Daenerys gestured, and Daemon Waters stepped forward, blade half drawn. "Search them," she ordered. In minutes, the knights stood stripped of surcoats. One bore a hidden dart gun upon his wrist, another a scroll sewn within doublet lining. Fires beginning snuffed by dagger's bite. "Strike the sister, keep the brother for exchange." The seal of the gold hand of the king graced its lower edge. Sir Lorne zagged, defeat etched plain. "I begged them, no secret murder." They would not heed. They being whom? He stared at the floor. Lord Renly's retainer, Sir Loras Tyrell, commanded the hire of Braavosi cutthroats. Letters pass in hidden ink through King's Landing. I know little beyond. Men? Daenerys accepted that. The Reach's lilies blew on every cunning wind. "Your lives are forfeit but need not end," she told the knights. "Oath yourselves truthfully to my cause, and earn redemption." 5 bent knees again. One refused, spitting Baratheon curses. Drogon leapt from his perch, wings snapping. Fire did not leave his throat, but the intention lived in his hiss. The knight blanched, surrendered. She kept them under guard. Later they swore into her growing household guard. The incident crystallized what Maester Kelvin later titled in his journals, the first assassination attempt upon Daenerys' stormborn art. It bound the garrison together tighter than hammered steel. Even Sellswords accepted that the mother of dragons must be protected above gold and glory, for the dragons were future incarnate. That very evening, Daenerys convened council. Light rain pattered embrasures while torches wavered. Viserys, pallid but upright, sat at her right. Arain Velaryon, Daemon Waters, Maester Kelvin, and newly promoted Shara of the Scarlet Hair formed half-H circle. "Our foes grow bold," Daenerys began. "Spies will not cease. Assassins will not cease. We cannot remain hidden yet are not strong enough to stride forth. So we must become both smoke and sword at once." Kelvin dipped quill. "Explain, my queen." "We sow uncertainty. Spread rumor of dragons bound for Pentos, for Tyrosh, for Volantis. Hint we sail east." She touched the painted table where Essos would lie beyond. "Let Robert chase ghosts across the narrow sea, while we harden talons here." Arain nodded. "Velaryon skippers can leak word at every free city's harbor." Viserys listened, fingers restless along the table's edge. He interjected. "And what of strike? While we hide, the usurper's bastards whelp further bastards." "No hiding," Daenerys replied. "But we choose the terrain. Dragonstone's volcano sleeps lightly. Caverns under the island once sheltered 1,000 drakes. We will delve them anew, build roosts, train our young to fly in secrecy. When they crest the battlements, matured, we shall strike not as raiders, but as rightful sovereigns returning in dawn blaze." Daenerys. Her calm certainty stilled the room. Even Viserys' protest faded. Meanwhile, she continued, we gather allies. Valerian, Massey, perhaps Celtigar of Claw Isle if we offer trade rights. Dawn's Light Monastery on Massey's Hook distills wildfire. They might be persuaded to supply more. We employ fear, yes, but layered beneath hope. Viserys studied her a long moment. Whatever he saw pulled taut the frayed cloth of his ambition. When he spoke, his voice was controlled. The fever dream parted. So be it. I will ride to Claw Isle with a suite of knights and a gift of pearls. The Celtigars respect old blood. They will bend sooner under king's authority. Daenerys inclined her head. Go with dragons aloft and you will frighten them into caution. Go alone and you will win hearts. She laid a hand upon his. Brother, you are needed. A flicker of appreciation flashed. We both are, he said. His hand squeezed hers. No bone-crushing reminder of dominance, merely brotherly press. Over the next moon, the fortress resounded with pickaxe, and saw, with shouted orders echoed deep in Lavavan galleries. Daenerys herself ventured into the underbelly, torch in one hand, Drogon perched on her shoulder, Rhaegal and Viserion flitting overhead like sparks. They navigated tunnels where red crystal dripped from ceilings, where air shimmered with heat thick enough to drink. In one chamber half collapsed, she discovered a mural fresco depicting 7 dragons tethered by chains of gold to rider silhouettes. Upon the opposite wall, another painting showed chains shattered, riders aloft amongst canyon clouds. Beneath, words in ink so faded Kelvin later required alchemical trickery to reveal them. Flame forged in freedom flies farthest. She traced this motto with reverent fingers and felt vibrations in stone answer back like heartbeat. They cleared rubble, installed iron perches, hammered from melted scrap of captured galleys, lined niches with slate slabs to bask heat upward. Dragons took to the space instantly, crawling across jutting ridges, dueling each other in mock aerial combat under ceiling heights 70 feet tall. Their wings strengthened. Bursts of fire lengthened beyond candle flickers into streamers capable of crisping leather. Singed eyebrows became common among the handlers. Shara formed a care corps of 10, instructing them in the new Valyrian commands Daenerys had crafted. Short, musical sounds that guided dragons to lift, bank, quiet. Each day at sunrise they marched with hatchlings to the courtyard, where canvas targets stuffed with horsehair hung from masts. Dragons dove upon them, rending cloth, blasting smoke. Men cheered. Children of fisherfolk, who had taken refuge within walls for safety, pressed faces to crenelles, awestruck. Viserys returned from Claw Isle with parchment signed and sealed. Lord Audrey and Celtigar pledged 100 archers and right of passage through his waters. He also sent a gift. 9 axes forged from pale red steel mined in the fiery isle's depths. Viserys wore one at his hip. He gifted 2 to Daemon, 1 to Arrayne, and kept the remainder in a chest embossed with the dancing crimson crab. At the feast marking his return he performed sword forms, swirling the axe one-handed until sparks flew. The hall applauded. Daenerys clapped, but studied his expression, exhilaration edged by mania. Still, he had succeeded. She would celebrate victory however flawed. Another moon waxed. Dragons doubled in size. Their scales darkened, horns sharpened, teeth replaced by stronger rows, much like sharks cycling dentition. Drogon now stretched nearly 6 feet from snout to tail fork, wingspan the length of a tall man laid twice. Rhaegal's green bronze deepened to jungle hue. Viserion's ivory now swirled with faint amber veins. They no longer fit upon Daenerys' shoulders. They perched on outstretched forearms, or better flew above her when she rode shaggy island ponies along cliff paths. One crisp morning she guided Drogon to soar above sea winds for the first time. Kelvin had calculated lift. Dragons of his weight should sustain short glides. She climbed the Dragon's Maw, a promontory rising 200 feet sheer from foaming surf. Drogon paced the ridge, wings shivering with anticipation. She removed harness lines sewn by Sailor Hirith, slender cords of silk-mixed hemp, which Drogon tolerated only grudgingly. She knelt, touched her forehead to his. Zuldritzes, she whispered. Sovagon? Fly. He bounded thrice, wings snapping open. Wind caught membrane. For an instant he hung suspended, a banner of living night. Then he tipped forward and fell, plummeting. Her heart seized. At 50 feet he jerked wings, caught an updraft, leveled. He soared. His shriek cut gull cries aside. He banked, tail acting rudder. Rhaegal and Viserion, still at her back, screamed envy. Drogon circled once above the cliff crown, then arrowed toward the sun until only silhouette remained. Daenerys laughed, tears wetting lashes. When Drogon returned to land awkwardly in a skidding tumble that cracked an ancient cairn, she rushed to him, smothering him in praise, ignoring stone dust clinging to gown. He shook himself proudly, preened wing joints, and butted her chest. Behind her, handlers cheered like a small army. That flight changed all. Within days, Rhaegal and Viserion attempted shorter leaps. Both succeeded in glides across courtyards and over parapets. Song of Wings became Dragonstone's anthem. Work halted each time a dragon launched, men doffing caps to watch. But with progress came new strain. Meat stores dwindled twice as fast. Fishermen complained dragons spooked shoals. After Drogon snatched a goat from a herder's pen, Viserys insisted on tithes from small folk to compensate. Daenerys refused. She paid goat and coin, then decreed pasture lands south slope off limits until corrals built. The small folk hailed her kindness. Viserys sneered soft, but obeyed her signed order. A letter from Illyrio Mopatis arrived, carried by a Pentoshi cog. It praised her health and hinted at further treasures, glass candles, mage's powders, should she desire. It also offered a proposal. Magister Illyrio could purchase 50 unsullied out of Astapor, ship them discreetly under guise of eunuch servants. Daenerys pondered long. The cost steep, yet the discipline unmatched. She invited counsel. Owain approved. Daemon expressed concern about relying on foreigners. Kelvin argued numbers essential. Viserys scoffed. Buy paltry spears rather than recruit Riverland peasants to our banner? He proposed conscripting small folk along Crackclaw claws by force. Daenerys rejected conscription. In compromise, she dispatched Owain with letters and gold to engage sellsword companies across stepstones with promise of dragons' favor to come. She penned Illyrio polite gratitude but deferred purchase. For now, another dream visited her. A great city of pale towers under Blackwing shadow. Crowds cheering her name in tongues she did not know. Then towers melted to slag while chains snapped across her arms, yanking her downward into seething pitch. She woke shivering, though summer lingered. She went to the hatchery and lay among dragons till warmth steadied. By late summer's cusp, raven flights brought tidings. King Robert had abandoned the hunt for Targaryen ghosts, distracted by boar hunts, and a tourney at Harrenhal, rumored to cloak Lannister intrigues. Renly marched to Highgarden to court Margaery Tyrell. Only Stannis remained fixed, constructing new galleys at Storm's End patterned after the ancient dramans once used by Maegor the Cruel, long, lean, tipped with brazen rams shaped as crowned stags. His spies circled every dock. Yet Dragonstone trembled less at his name, now that Drogon spanned nearly 10 feet tip-to-tip and breathing flame thick as a smith's furnace. Daenerys stood upon a balcony one gold evening, gaze sweeping horizon. Behind her, inside, a new cloak of black wool lined with red satin rested across a chair. Shera stitched a 3-headed dragon upon the back, each head distinct, black, green, and cream gold. Below, Rhaegal and Viserion tussled over a split fish barrel. Sparks danced each time teeth clashed scale. She inhaled sea air. Salt, smoke, promise. She pictured King's Landing, copper domes, septs, wine-breathed streets, and imagined Drogon's shadow sliding across the Red Keep's walls. Not yet, she told herself. But soon enough the world would learn a deeper fear than Robert's hammer or Stannis' stubborn justice. The reckoning of flame reborn? Footsteps padded behind. Viserys joined her, expression unreadable under twilight. He placed a hand on the balustrade beside hers. They watched Drogon wheel above the yard on test flight. "Remember when we hid in Pento's spice market?" he said quietly. "You were barely tall as my knee. I promised you sweet plums but spent our last silver on sour wine for my aid." She smiled faintly. "You said the plums were stolen by sparrows? I feared thieves would knife us." He exhaled. "I have failed you often. Yet look what you have forged." He gestured toward the dragon. "Our legacy." She regarded him softly. "You have not failed me now. Stand beside me and we will carve dawn bright." He met her gaze, and for an instant the haunted fever lifted. "Beside you," he vowed. Below. Drogon executed a smooth banking curve, flames streaming in controlled exhalation, lighting the courtyard in ribbons of orange. Men cheered, and the sound rolled up the walls like surf. Viserys' smile widened, genuine, before fading into contemplation. "He grows fast. He will be ready when time asks." He nodded. "Then we must ready the realm to answer." Far out on the silvered sea, lightning flickered on the rim of world, a silent herald of storms to come. Daenerys watched till it died, hand resting on her brothers where it still clutched stone. Dragons sang in the yard, raw, exultant chords, and Dragonstone, cradle of her blood, breathed deeper, its molten heart beating in time. When full dark settled, she descended to the caverns with her children. She placed a fresh slab of mutton by each perch, stroked scaled brows, whispered stories of Valyria before the doom. As she spoke, flame pulsed in their throats, answering old memory. She knew then that the line of dragons was not merely continued but awakened, that some kernel of lost empire stirred anew in their marrow, and perhaps in hers. She extinguished torches, leaving only the glow of smoldering coal beds and dragonfire-scented coals. In that dim red, wings folded and eyes shuttered, but heat remained vibrant, like watchfires banked for invasion yet to come. She stood long, letting silence seal vow upon vow. Outside, Dragonstone's towers cut moonlight into shards upon the black water. Beyond, the continent sprawled ignorant, kings feasting, lords scheming, small folk praying for mild winters. None guessed how swiftly season could change when dragons spread their wings in earnest. Daenerys Targaryen turned from the roost, strides measured, purpose crisp as northern frost. Behind her 3 dragons stirred, cold-red eyes flickering open, following her progress until stone hid her from sight. But not from sensing. For blood unbroken links more surely than chain or crown, and in that bond slept the promise of a dawn that would set all kingdoms trembling. She ascended spiral stairs, entering night air heavy with stars. She drew Kelvin's translated parchment from belt, regarding the motto once more beneath starlight. "Flame forged in freedom flies farthest." She smiled and tucked it close to her heart. Above, drifting like a silent herald, Drogon glided across the moon, casting a shadow vast enough to shroud battlements, yet graceful as a dancer on Winter Lake. A newborn legend, painted on midnight canvas. Daenerys whispered to the night, to wind, to every stone born of dragonfire, "Fly far, my children. I will follow." And the island, ancient and alive, answered with distant tremor from its fiery core, as if an old king's lost heart stirred once more in welcome. "Inakei. Aegis come nawara." Wind raced over the high causeway, linking Dragonstone's inner keep to the Sea Dragon Tower, sharp with salt and bearing the first chill hints of autumn. Daenerys welcomed the bite on her cheeks as she leaned into the parapet and studied the blackened sea below. Far to the south, the sky bruised with storm, but here dawn burst scarlet across scattered cloud banks, throwing molten light over wet roof slates and making every puddle on the flagstones glow like heated copper. A gull wheeled past at eye level. Drogon gave chase from the tower's spire, diving so close his wing wash rattled the shutters. He climbed again in a single powerful sweep, tail cutting a lazy spiral that left ribbons of mist in its path. Rhaegal and Viserion had taken to the air earlier, circling the volcano's eastern flank where goats grazed the sparse grass. Their silhouettes passed over the goat herds with an indolent ownership, and the beasts below only bleated dully. After months of exposure, they had learned hysterics served no purpose, and fences were stronger now. Still, Every so often a daring kid vanished in a snap of ivory fangs, and Daenerys repaid the losses threefold from captured spoils, so resentment never took root. Fear, she had come to understand, could be managed. Hunger only bred rebellion. Down in the outer ward, the rattle of pikes announced the change of morning watch. She counted more men than ever before. Valyrian marines in pearl-trimmed half-plates, Celtigar archers, massy spearmen, and a growing kern of smallfolk volunteers, who insisted on drilling with wooden axes until iron could be forged. At their head strode Owain Valerian in glossy sea-green armor. And even from this height her laughter rang bright as she corrected a recruit's sloppy stance, flipped the boy's spear about, and showed the proper thrust like a dance step. Somewhere beyond the kitchens, Daemon Waters barked commands at the latest batch of stepstones, cell swords now sworn and quartered in the belly of the fortress. More souls arrived every tide. With them came gossip. Robert's drinking had worsened. The Lion Queen whispered of sending their eldest boy to Casterly Rock for safety. Renly dallied at Highgarden beneath rose-perfumed arches, while Mace Tyrell fattened his coffers. Yet none of that troubled Daenerys as much as the grim tidings carried by an exhausted raven 2 nights past. The raven bore the livery of the Night's Watch, black sealed with white wax, ominous in its rarity, for the watch sent birds south only when doom stirred beyond their wall. Shadows in the snow, dead men walking. Wildlings flee south in numbers unknown. Ask the true dragon for flame in sky, or winter will devour all thrones. The plea arrived unsigned, but Maester Kelvin recognized the cramped, slope-backed smoothing of ink as belonging to Lord Commander Jor Mormont. The Maester's eyes had filled with silent worry as he broke the cipher before Daenerys. She read the words twice and felt something shift inside, a premonition not so much of danger as a vast purpose pressing upon her shoulders like the weight of Drogon's wings. Viserys dismissed the letter as northern cowardice. Wildling ghost stories, he scoffed when she placed the parchment in his hands. Yet for the first time since his fevered bout, he did not sneer with full conviction. She spotted it in the quickness of his swallow and the way he tugged his cuffs. Now, leaning on the parapet, she thought again of those words, dead men walking, and rubbed the base of her throat where Viserion had slept curled the previous evening, his warm breath drifting up under her chin. Ice and fire, forever bound in some cosmic riddle, she wondered whether dragon's fire alone could answer snowborn horrors from beyond a wall she had never seen. Leather soles scuffed behind her. Shara approached, cheeks pink from exertion and early wind, hair bound back with a strip of red silk. She dipped a curt bow, though formality between them had eased as intimacy deepened. "My queen," she said, "the new Septon begs a moment, the one Owain fetched from Spicetown. He carries 7 small gods cast in pewter and says the gods need a place to stand." Daenerys smiled faintly. "Tell him they may stand in the western cloister near the garden cistern. It's warm, and the small folk like the sound of water during prayers." Shara nodded, but hesitation lingered. "He also asks when Dragonstone might see a sept built anew. Storms took the last during Lord Stannis' tenure. A septa requires timber we spare for ships and shelters," Daenerys said. "I will speak with him. Faith grows where kindness waters it, not where walls rise alone." She paused. "And have cooks send barley bread to the quarry diggers. Double rations. They work through chill evenings." Shara's lips curved. "Consider it done." She moved to leave, then, catching Daenerys' gaze lingering on Drogon's aerial pretzel, ventured, "The king begs you attend him in the solar. He pores over maps again." Daenerys stiffened, not with dread, but with the measured caution she now carried into every exchange with Viserys. He had emerged from fever tempered to a strange stillness, thoughtful in council, courteous in public, yet the ragged edges of ambition still gleamed if light struck just right. She wondered whether some secret calculation filled his waking hours. Perhaps he meant to surprise her with news of new allies. Or perhaps he plotted something darker. "Tell him I come anon," she said. Shara nodded and slipped away. Daenerys took another breath of sea-cut freshness, then turned down the stairs carved into Dragonstone's outer curtain wall. Drogon saw. He angled wings to follow, shadow sliding over the courtyard to alight upon the battlements above the main gate as she passed beneath. A few men flinched, though by now they should be accustomed. Drogon preened, satisfied, and watched his mother stride through the arch. Inside the keep's lantern-lit corridor, the air thickened with hearth smoke and iron oil. She crossed the patterned floor of the hall of ancient twilight, named for the narrow amber windows capturing sunset fire each evening, and mounted the three-flight stair to the solar. Viserys guards, 2 Tyroshi sellswords clad in half-scale, parted on her approach. Their respectful nods masked unease. She knew some still considered her dragon sorceress. Let them quake. Awe partnered respect more firmly than fear alone. Viserys sat at a crescent writing desk scattered with parchment rolls, a half-drained goblet at his elbow. He looked drawn but alert, pallor lending an almost ethereal glow to his Targaryen features beneath candle sheen. A map unfurled across the desk's breadth. Westeros in delicate ink strokes, jade washed for forests, pewter for rivers. Tiny wooden carved tokens marked towns, castles, fleets. He did not rise, but he set quill aside and offered a wan smile. Sister, I map food lines. Bread conquers faster than sword. So says our maester. Fingers brushed the map. If we seize Maidenpool's granaries before frost and hold Duskendale's docks, we bind King's Landing's belly in knots. You think of siege already, she answered gently, rounding to his side. Drogon landed on the balcony's stone rail behind, wings furling with a leathery thrum. Viserys only flicked a glance. Sisters of fate press us, he said. Robert may drink and rot, but Tywin Lannister sharpens claws. Stannis builds rams to crack these walls, and Renly woos roses to bury us in sweetness. We must step before them. Daenerys studied the board. He had carved 3 new tokens, dragons, each painted in the likeness of her children, black, green, pale gold. Drogon's effigy perched upon Blackwater Bay, Rhaegal's along the Roserwad, Viserion's on the neck. She touched the last. Why there? Viserys' eyes glimmered. Half-proud teacher. A gesture. Rumor of a dragon over Moat Cailin may keep the Stark's wolves sniffing north rather than south. He sipped wine. It is but linden wood and paint, yet whispers carry shapes faster than sails can. She exhaled, impressed despite caution. Words as wings, she murmured. Exactly. He leaned back. And for words we need tongues. I dispatch envoys tomorrow. One to White Harbor disguised as Dothraki spice peddlers. One to the Fingers under a banner of pilgrimage. A Stark or an Arryn might recall their oaths to my blood still. Her gaze slid to him. Envoys risk knives. Even our halls see would-be assassins. Certain. Therefore I send those none mourn, he said cold. Sellswords, eager for gold. They succeed. They live rich. They fail. No one weeps. Daenerys' stomach tightened. Pragmatic, yes, but she still felt the small tug of pity for each expendable soul. I ask one condition, she said. No envoy shall bear my dragon's names without truth. Let rumor swirl by its own currents. He opened mouth to retort, paused, then inclined head. As you wish. A moment of quiet pooled, broken only by parchment rustle and distant gull cry. Daenerys studied her brother's face. The fine bones, the faint circles below eyes like smudged soot. He had not slept enough. She recognized the same restless fire that once had driven him through Pentos at night, muttering vengeance. You should rest, she said. Dreams guide better on rested wings. He snorted, gentle tether of sibling amusement. I will, when the Iron Throne cushions my spine. Yet he nodded, conceded. His fingers ceased their jittery tap. But I summoned you to share this. He reached behind piles and produced a folded square of supple leather. Within lay a pendant no larger than a dove egg. A dragon's eye carved from polished obsidian pupil a tiny emerald sliver. He dangled it by thin silver chain. Candlelight licked stone facets, casting green fire across her arm. For you? he said. "Crafted in the smithies below. Wear it when you speak with lords, they love symbols." Daenerys accepted, startled. The obsidian felt warm though no heat source touched it. Drogon hissed approval. She clasped it round her throat. "Thank you," she whispered. Viserys smiled once more, softer. "United, the dragons prevail." She squeezed his palm and took her leave, pendant heavy as oath upon collarbone. Mark down. Afternoon sun whipped cloud rags into molten banners as 3 dragons launched from Dragonstone's crown into open sky. Gulls scattered, cawing in indignation. Below, Oraine's new galleys, Seafoam Arrow and Maiden's Mercy, tested fresh rigging, sails bellied crisp. Daenerys rode Drogon now with a leather seat strapped just aft the wing joints, little more than padded girth and stirrup loops, but sufficient for short passages. They climbed on a thermal bursting from Dragonmon's caldera vent. Heat shimmered. Smoke tainted with sulfur curled around them. The world fell away. Rhaegal and Viserion flew off either side, formation imperfect but improving daily. Wind tore Daenerys' braid loose. Strands lashed cheeks as she guided Drogon with pressure of knees and gentle Valyrian crooning. They crossed the island in 2 breaths, then banked seaward. She glimpsed the white spires of Driftmark faint as chalk smudges on the horizon. Time in the air felt shapeless, a song of wind and muscle, scent of brine and charcoal, the thunk of her heart answering wingbeat. Drogon exulted, exhaling occasional gouts of flame for sheer joy. The heat licked her boots, warming soles through the cured sealskin. They practiced dives, leveling, tight turns. Each success she rewarded with slabs of smoked shark. Strapped behind her saddle, Drogon tore morsels with gusto. Rhaegal snapped at a passing cormorant, caught only tail feathers, and trumpeted disappointment. Viserion chased drifting foam lines where pods of dolphins larked, curious but unwilling to plunge. High above, the sky turned glassy blue-edged gold. She could see the world curve. Was this how Aegon felt astride Balerion's furnace? Pride mingled with humility. She, a refugee barefoot in Myers alleys once, now commanded the air. A horn's mournful drone cut the wind. She scanned below. Off Dragonstone's northeast shore, 5 black sails etched the sea. Baratheon colors trimmed gold. Stannis' scouting squadron returning from patrol. They had not chanced so close in months. Today spears of their masts pointed toward her island. She signaled. Drogon tilted. Rhaegal and Viserion followed her descent path. Salt air thickened to racket as waves rushed up. She angled wide, staying distant yet visible, an unmistakable warning. One galley turned. The others held course stubbornly, perhaps daring her to strike first. Daenerys weighed response. Flame could sink them easily, but each soul aboard might be a conscript, not a sworn enemy. She chose a middle path. Demonstration without slaughter. She guided Drogon along starboard flank of the lead galley, staying high enough that archers on deck could scarce find mark. Then she loosed a Valyrian command honed in practice, Ergon Glaze. Drogon inhaled. The world paused. Flame erupted, wide fan of orange and cobalt, scorching but measured, licking the sea 50 yards abeam, boiling water into pillars of steam that dwarfed the warship's mast. Timber groaned in heat. Men shrieked, stumbling back, yet no wood caught. An artist's stroke of terror, not murder. The galley heeled, oars stuttering. Panic seized formation, sails luffed as helmsmen veered away. Within heartbeats, all 5 galleys turned east, fleeing spray and shadow. Daenerys climbed then, letting dragons circle triumph over hum of receding horns. She would send ravens tonight. Force repelled without blood. Let it be known we defend, not provoke. Mark down. Redande. Days tumbled into a restless quilt. Councils, flights, drills, diplomacy by raven and whisper. Supplies swelled. Kilns poured arrowheads like iron rain. Looms twisted crimson banners. Oraine's carpenters transformed a neglected ship shed into a hospital. Shera oversaw herb gardens in sheltered courtyards where healers cultivated feverfew, comfrey, and shadowmint. One amber dusk Daenerys walked those budding beds, hands clasped behind back, absorbing the scent of crushed mint under boot. A low hum rose beyond hedges. Dozens of candle lanterns floated in the reflecting pool, flickering prayers the new Septon had instituted for fallen comrades from skirmishes along Crackclaw Coast. She paused by the water's rim. Each candle mirrored a star not yet kindled above. Between sky and pond, she saw twin heavens, one trembling on breeze. She touched the obsidian pendant at her throat and thought again of winter ghosts. Flame and darkness, always two mirrors. Boots crackled gravel. Daemon Waters emerged, silver-edged beard coarse under torchlight. He bowed. "Raven from Pentos," he stated, extending a scroll sealed blue with Magister's sigil. She broke wax. Illyrio's florid hand announced success. 3 hired Pentoshi cogs, under false Free City papers, departed in 4 days, bearing a gift shipment. Rarities of silk, spice, and shadow. Bound straight for Dragonstone. He implied hidden cargo of seasoned mercenaries from the eastern Basilisk Isles, famed for night infiltration, and included a small dagger sketch that to her eyes seemed shaped like a wyvern biting its own tail. Daemon read her furrow, voiced what she felt. A second assassin pack. Or loyal blades, she countered, though suspicion coiled. Illyrio plied in riddles. Still, they needed every edge. She instructed Daemon, "Send stealth cutters west to sweep for spy sails. If Illyrio's ships fall into Storm's End nets, they could betray more than cargo." He bowed. "Ate once." That same night, Orain returned from patrol with dire news. Storm's End had finished 3 Dramans, triple-banked with scorpions larger than any ship killer known. Their prows bore iron rams shaped like crowned stags breathing flame, tar cauldrons built into antler hollows. Stannis named them Fury, Faith, and Judgment. A 4th hull loomed half-completed. Sailors whispered each keel was blessed by a red woman from Ashai, who claimed all seas burned for her god. Viserys dismissed sorcery outright, but studied the ship's sketches grimly. "We cannot wait for Judgment to launch," he declared next council. "We strike now, burn fledging while still in cradle." Orain shook her head. "Storm's End's harbor is fortress-bound. Chain booms. Stone scorpions on the promontory towers. Even dragons may suffer bolt or blinded by potash thrown from hawse holes." "Ow." Discourse heated. Maester Kelvin argued caution. Daemon favored sabotage teams under moonless sky. Shara recommended poisoning harbor stores. Through it all, Daenerys listened, weighing threads. Finally, she raised hand. "We will cut not harbor chain, but heart. Dramans need sailcloth, tar, seasoned beams. Those come from Tarth's shipyards and the Rainwood sawmills. Strike resources and Stannis bleeds time." "Daemon." Viserys frowned. He wanted spectacle, but she pressed. "Drogon can torch sawmills in minutes. Men can salvage char but cannot shape ash into masts. Meanwhile, Regal and Viserion sow dread along trade routes, escorted by our swiftest galleys. We do not challenge the castle yet. We erode its breath." Orain grinned. "Starve the lungs, so the roar quiets." Viserys considered, then nodded slowly. "Very well. Let your plan thread needle, but I ride with you, sister, to see flames decide." So a new campaign birthed. Over following weeks, Tarth's dense cedar forests, once echoing with saw rings, fell silent under black char. Tar kilns near the Rainwood exploded into night conflagrations, painting clouds bloody. No man died, save one guard who refused flight. Daenerys ordered Drogon to spare him, but a falling beam took his life all the same. She sent his kin silver an apology. Rumors flared wilder than the fires. Some told of 3 dragons, others 5. Some claimed an entire sky lit with winged serpents. Stannis recalled his new Dramans to deeper water, posting triple watch. Back at Dragonstone, Viserys' mood swung between euphoria and sullen fury when rumors credited Daenerys alone. She offered him roles. Envoy to White Harbor sailed under his flag. Parley with Stone Tree Reavers preceded by his signature. Yet in private she sometimes caught him before the hearth, staring at Drogon sleeping, eyes rimmed red as though tears had dried unshed. Once he murmured, unaware of her presence, "Mine. They were meant for me." She retreated before he noticed. The strain crested the night. A Pentoshi cog, called Silken Whisper, docked under false lantern code. Owain's Marines boarded first, expecting mercenaries. Instead, they found half the crew dead of weeping sores, eyes black-bloomed. Those alive babbled of demon shrouds and a mist that gnawed flesh. Down in the hold, casks of powdered jade fire, wildfire refined beyond normal potency, had cracked in transit, mixing with exotic spores used in dye trade, birthing a necrotic fume. 3 Marines inhaled before masks could be donned. 2 died shrieking by dawn, flesh sloughing. Illyrio's gift had turned poison. Dragonstone's healer ranks worked feverishly, smothering flames, tossing barrels into sea, scouring decks with vinegar. Daenerys walked among the sick, rags soaked in mint and vinegar pressed to her face, administering laudanum, holding hands until tremors ceased. Her white hair, an obsidian pendant, glimmered amid blood and bile. Those who survived called her light of fire in darkness. Viserys stormed at the carnage, cursing Illyria's name. In council he demanded ravens of condemnation, yet Daenerys forbade open break. Pentos still served as backdoor to Essos coin. Instead, she penned measured missive, stating tragedy, requiring restitution in grain and healers, and cautioning future secrecy. She sealed with wax impressed by new stamp, dragon eye over crown, and gave the letter to a loyal Lysini courier, promising triple pay for swift, discreet delivery. That same evening, standing alone on a parapet, Viserys' composure cracked. He pressed both palms to the stone till knuckles whitened. She approached, cloak billowing. Words erupted from him like acid. "They bow to you," he choked. "Even when my plans scorch seas, they chant your name. They call you breaker of chains, mother of dragons, Fireheart. What am I in their eyes but the pale shadow of a boy?" "Nender," she answered, quiet but firm. "You are the dragon's heir and my brother. Your blood is enough if you believe it so." His laugh shattered. "Believe? Faith does not arm me with flame, sister?" He turned, tears balanced on the lashes. "Give me one, Rhaegal. He is green like valleys I will rule. Let him bond." Fear pricked. She loved him, but she knew how dragons chose. Still, she tried. "Extend your hand," she said gently. Rhaegal lay nearby, atop heated basalt plate, dozing to Chrysler. Viserys approached, knees trembling. He extended open palm. The dragon's nostrils flared. It lifted head, golden green eyes blinking. For a breath, it considered him. Then it hissed, a short sound not of hatred but refusal, folded wings, and turned away. Viserys' face crumpled. She laid hand on his shoulder. "It may take time." He shrugged from her touch. Tears vanished, replaced by shuttered glare. "Time is a luxury we bleed." He stalked away, cloak snapping. Mark down. Wind. Snow arrived early that year on the high passes of the Vale. Ravens reported snows 30 feet in Maiden's Gap, blocking trade. South winds carried chill even into Blackwater Bay. Dragonstone's braziers burned day and night. Smoke coiled around parapets like morning scarves. Dragons loved the cold evenings. They leapt higher, breath pluming thicker fire. Yet small folk shivered despite new cloaks. To hearten spirits, Daenerys declared festival of the first flame at winter solstice. Bards sang in 4 languages. Tables overflowed with spiced octopus, lemon cakes, and roasted chestnuts from southern orchards. At the feast's height, dragons soared overhead, trailing plumes of blue-tinged flame as fireworks purchased from the summer islands burst in violet chrysanthemums. Children squealed. Men who once fought under usurper banners wept openly. Viserys toasted beside her, golden cup held high, words gracious. But wine gleamed too brightly in his eyes, and later, in a corridor dim with torch, she caught him whispering heatedly with the Tyroshi Sellsword captain. When they noticed her presence, the captain bowed too low, muttering apologies. Viserys claimed only minor postings. She pretended to believe, though suspicion nodded. That suspicion hardened at midnight's turn. Drogon shrieked distant in the hatchery. Daenerys rushed, barefoot on icy flagstones. She entered cavern to chaos, Rhaegal trapping a cloaked intruder against rock, talons ripping stone above the man's head, sparks spraying. 2 more corpses already lay smoldering. Sellswords felled by Viserion's flame. The living man shielded face with forearm, dagger in other hand useless under wing. Guards collided into chamber behind her. They dragged Invader out from Rhaegal's shadow. He reeked of wine and fear. Torchlight revealed Taroshi captain, eyes rolling wild. Under his tunic glimmered a chain of small vials, one broken leaked oily fluid reeking of lampblack and wormwood. The poison pyromancers called burning tears, lethal to dragon flesh if smeared upon raw meat. Daenerys' stomach clenched. Blood roared. Guards pinned him. "Who sent you?" she demanded, soft as winter fog. "The king," the man blubbered, likely expecting Viserys, but meaning Robert. She waited. He swallowed, coughed. "Your brother promised gold ship, a whorehouse in Bravos. Said dragon blood belongs to him, not you. Said you'd understand once freed from their spell." Tears streaked grime. Daenerys felt a hollowness, then white-hot flame. She ordered him imprisoned under stone guard. Then she ascended to Viserys' apartments, strides echoing, 2 unsullied, recently arrived, purchased in secret from Qohor. Matching pace. She paused only when Kelvin emerged from library alcove, reading lamp in hand. One look at her face and he stepped aside. Inside the royal apartment she found Viserys by the hearth, head in hands, a small ledger open before him. Beside lay an empty wine flagon. He looked up, bleary, saw her expression and paled. "What has happened?" She spoke no word. She held his gaze until he faltered. She signaled unsullied. Eunuch spears lowered. They seized him. He fought but weakly, spitting slurred protests. The ledger tumbled, pages inked with names, figures, payments, bribes promised. Some names familiar from her guard roster. "You set poison at their throats," she said, voice trembling but steady. "My children. Your blood." "Basham." "It did." He coughed, chest heaving. "I meant only to scare you. To prove they answer me too." The sellswords acted on lies. She stepped close. A king who kills his own dragons drowns his crown in ash. Tears slid tracks down his cheeks. "I ain't a last king," he whispered hoarse. "No," she said. "You are my brother. Crown and kingdom lie in future's hands unknown. For now I must keep my people alive, and that includes you. If possible." Guards awaited her order. She closed eyes. Choice heavy. In old tales, Targaryen blood shed blood to keep purity. Madness slipped those veins like wildfire through cracks. She would not repeat Doom's litany. She opened eyes. "Take him to the western tower," she ordered. "No chains, but guards at every stair. He will see no wine, no blade. Maester visits at dawn." Viserys sagged in their grip, relief and shame intermixing. They guided him away. When he vanished, Daenerys braced both hands on the mantle, ash-dusting skin. Tears blurred vision, but she let them flow a breath, then wiped them dry. Hearth coals glimmered. She fed a log, watched flame quicken, found solace in its order. Wood to ember, ember to ash, cycle clean. Behind her Drogon padded into chamber, head butting thigh. She sank to knees, arms circling broad neck, cheek against warm scales. "We move forward," she whispered in Valyrian. Drogon hummed, as if affirming. Mark down. Jitter. Snowflies drifted on wind next morning as Daenerys convened war council in the painted table chamber. Viserys absent, seat draped in silent statement. Arain, Daemon, Kelvin, Shara, 2 Dornish envoys newly arrived under Prince Doran's seal, and gray beneath the moon, a smuggler from IB, whose squat round shoulders bore frost-like pauldrons, arrayed around massive map top. Candles hissed. She spoke first, voice clear. Our house must stand united or fall to dust. Last night proved fracture within. I will not hide truth. There was attempt on dragons orchestrated from these walls. The instigator is contained. His life remains, but trust rewrites path forward. All here swear anew to dragons and realm. Not to a single name. Silence heavy as basalt. Then Orain dropped to one knee, fist to heart. House Valerian and all my blood serve flameborn queen. Others followed, Daemon clapping fist to chest. Kelvin bowing head. Shara kneeling. Even the Ibanese smuggler knelt, though joints cracked loud. Daenerys thanked each. So, she continued, we turn to future. Winter licks our shores sooner than in memory. North begs aid against darkness. South readies. We must choose where first to spread wings. Nomu? Dumb. Kelvin unrolled fresh parchment. Raven reports told of King Robert riding north for a final grand hunt in the Kingswood, leaving Lannister guards to watch the capital. Rumors whispered of gold cloaks, restive, misrule rising. In the Vale, Lady Lysa, Aaron barricaded gates of the moon. In the Riverlands, raiders burned dairy fields wearing lion sigils, though House Lannister denied sanction. Opportunity spread like feast. Orain suggested lightning strike at Blackwater Bay while Robert away. Capture the royal fleet moored at Driftmark's older cousin islands. Daemon countered that such bold assault risked dragon injury from scorpions lining city walls. The Dornish envoys offered secret passes through Red Mountains. If Daenerys pledged to free them from bone-dry taxes inflicted by Highgarden's wagons. Discussion lengthened beneath stone dragons carved overhead, wings draped like sheltering arms. Daenerys listened, weighing, and at last raised hand. The North calls, she said. If dead men indeed walk, then all banners will fold before that march. We show we are not merely conquerors, but protectors. We fly north, scout first, bring fire if needed. A gesture of alliance. A hush, then Kelvin nodded sagely. Prophecy speaks dragon, and ice converge. Oran's brow furrowed. To cross half the realm invites attack on our rear. Then, Second Fleet sails with sellsword captains to harry Crownlands. Drawing attention, Daenerys said. Valerian galleys quick enough to outrun Dromond's. Dragons above will shield. Our strike swift, demonstration of might. We return south by melt of first snows with northern gratitude. Nandagrakt. Debate churned, but eventually, accord bloomed. Orders etched, sails scheduled. Ebenez smuggler offered whale-greased torches that burn in sleet. Dornish envoys promised sand steeds for overland courier lines. Wheels turned. Daenerys ended council with these words. We march not for ashes, but for dawn. As those assembled dispersed, she lingered beneath Dragonstone's vaulted roof. Through arrow slit, she spied Dawnage winter's sun rising pale as a ghost, yet resolute. She traced the obsidian pendant, felt its warmth pulse to her heartbeat. Somewhere above, dragons wheeled, crying greetings today. Her path ahead twisted with peril. North winds, southern daggers, brothers wounded pride, but she would walk it. For dragons followed, and where fire walked, night fled. And in the deeps of her island, molten heart thundered, echoing a promise older than empires. That fire, once born anew, would never bow until the world itself lay remade. A.K.E. All. Mist veiled the yard like a silken shroud drawn from the sea itself. Drifting through crenellations and settling in pale pools along the cobbles. Dawn crept slow over Dragonstone, uncertain of its welcome after a night ruled by uneasy dreams. Daenerys Targaryen stood upon a timber platform hastily raised at the inner ward center. No grand dais, merely a place from which every soul assembled might see her face. She wore a cloak of unlined wool against the creeping cold, and beneath it simple riding leathers, dark as wet iron. Around her throat hung the obsidian eye Viserys had once given, its emerald pupil catching each flicker of torch like a single perpetually widening iris. Arrayed before her were 200 men and women chosen from the swelling garrison. Valyrian marines with pearl-scaled cuirasses, Celtigar longbowmen in crab-red surcoats, massy spears, Dornish sandsworn scouts, and the newest addition, 50 unsullied, freshly marched from their holdfast dormitory, helms off so the mist might cool sweat on their shaven scalps. Behind them clustered crafters and cooks, runners and farriers, lantern-bearing apprentices whose breath feathered silver. All waited, silent, save for the occasional clink of harness or the rasp of a sword sliding just so in its scabbard. To Daenerys' right stood Maester Kelvin, cloak heavy with raven's pinions. To her left, Owain Velaryon and Daemon Waters shared command of the expedition fleet. Shara hovered just behind, red hair hooded but glimmering in the pulsing torchlight. Viserys' place on the platform remained conspicuously empty. He watched like a restless shade from the tower of wind and salt across the yard, windows dark behind frost-dimmed panes. Daenerys let the hush stretch until it felt like breath held across the entire aisle. When she spoke, her voice was low, yet the crisp air carried it to the farthest rank. "We leave at noon with the first full tide," she said. "Our prows aim north, not for conquest, but for covenant. Beyond the wall stand men of the Night's Watch, who have never bent knee to any crown save the realm's safety. They sent us plea, and we will answer. For dragons do not guard only their own nests. They guard the sky for all beneath. And Daenerys." Eyes turned upward almost by instinct, scanning the white void of fog. As if summoned, shadows split the mist. Drogon's broad wings blotting dawn's pallor, followed by Rhaegal's green ghost and Viserion's pale comet tail. They circled thrice, long necks craning to inspect the gathered host, before banking toward the caldera to feed on fresh butchered mutton prepared near the vents. A murmur of awe rippled. A few new recruits stumbled to one knee. "Some will sail, some will fly," Daenerys continued. "Some will remain, builders, healers, watchmen, to hold this fortress until we return. Whether you march behind my standard, or keep hearth fires glowing, remember we are one purpose. The world has learned fear. We will teach it hope." She lifted her right hand, palm outward. Shara stepped forward with a thin flask of deep red glass, worked into the shape of a twisting dragon. Daenerys unstoppered it, and a scent like smoke-spiced citrus filled the chill. She dabbed a drop on her thumb and pressed it to her tongue. A spark of warmth blossomed under her ribs, a Syrian spice elixir the summer islanders brewed for clarity of mind. Then she tilted the bottle so a single crimson bead fell on the platform's timbers. As flame from drop spreads to torch, so shall a single promise light a realm. Go now. Ready sails, sharpen blades, gather blessings. At noon we depart. She stepped down into the crowd. Soldiers made a lane, hands rising to touch her cloak's hem, murmuring, "Blood of the dragon," and "Light of fire," in accents from a dozen coasts. She answered each with a nod or a clasp of forearm, feeling energy course like river, surge after snowmelt. It buoyed her, yet somewhere beneath stirred a raw edge of worry that no fervor could blunt. The knowledge that one heartbeat only separated triumph from unraveling. The western tower soared narrow and square above tangles of lesser turrets, built originally as a lighthouse in Aegon's day. Its topmost chamber held Viserys under gentle arrest. 2 unsullied flanked the door. Inside, the room was furnished with modest comforts. A brazier, a narrow bed, a writing desk beneath high shuttered windows. No wine, no dagger, only parchment and quill. When Daenerys entered, Viserys looked up from a half-finished letter, eyes shadowed purple by sleeplessness. She dismissed the unsullied to the stairhead. Silence hummed. "I hear the yard cheering your name," he said. Voice rasped, scraped raw by nights of pacing perhaps. "The dragons wheel for you, even the unsullied bow. They admire their queen," she replied softly. "But do they bend for their king?" He dropped quill. Ink blot spread like bruise across parchment. He rose, fists bunching. "You march north and leave me caged behind these walls, like some tame gull that cannot fly. Guards watch when I piss, sister? Does your love weigh iron?" "My love kept steel from binding your wrists," she said. moving to the window. Below, the causeway yard bustled with sailors carting crates of smoked fish onto waiting galleys. She watched a moment before turning. "I cannot gamble the dragon's future if you conjure another scheme in secret." "Scheme?" His laugh came brittle. "I sought only what is mine." "Poison is not yours," she answered, voice sharp enough he flinched. She gentled. "Hear me. When I return, if dragon chooses you, I will rejoice. But you must show them courage that guards life, not steals it." Viserys' shoulders sagged. For a fleeting instant, he appeared once more, the boy who held her hand crossing Mare's alleys. That memory pinched. He covered his eyes with trembling fingers. "I hear them in dreams," he whispered. "Roars like heartbeats. I wake empty as a molted shell." Daenerys stepped close. "Then fill yourself with better dreams. When we sail, I leave you scrolls of their lore. Study, pray, temper. Let the dragons decide in time." She lifted his chin. "And watch Dragonstone. It will need your voice while mine travels." He stared, searching, perhaps for condemnation or forgiveness. She offered only truth, a steady gaze. At last he nodded. Small and slow. "Very well, sister. I will guard our nest." She smiled, a curve edged with sadness and hope. They embraced, brief, awkward, then parted. At the door she paused. "May the gods keep you, Viserys." "And you, Daenerys," he answered faint. She noticed he did not add titles. Noon rode on a bitter wind that peeled clouds to ragged tatters. Horns brayed across the harbor, gulls fled screaming. The fleet unfurled sails inked with new sigils. A black dragon's head crowned by a red sunburst on Orannon's flagship, Seafoam Arrow. Green dragon wings for Regal's escort. Summer gale, cream gold dragon eye for Viserion's guard. Maiden's mercy. Smaller cogs chartered by smuggler captains bore lesser pennants. 7-pointed stars, carved kraken. The Ibanese moon whale. In all, 14 hulls prepared to set north. On the windward quay, keeled deep in swirling brine, Daenerys waited astride a lean black courser gifted from Dorne, sure-footed, wide of nostril. Drogon crouched behind her on the pier's stone lip, massive wings mantled but jittering with pent-up impulse. Leather straps and a newly forged iron saddle padded with sealskin bound his back. Rhaegal and Viserion perched on derricks above, talons clinking chain loops. Owain Valerian approached, helm under arm. "The last kegs of vinegar loaded, my queen." Unsullied stand ready amidships. "Winds favor south, northwest. We can clear Gullet by dusk." Nagamor. "See that the smaller cogs ride inside our wedge," she said. "If Lannister patrols lurk east shore, their first sight shall be dragons, not merchant hulls." "Aye." Owain's sea-green eyes flicked to Drogon, who puffed small smoke rings in bored rhythm. "He is restless. He will have sky enough soon." She patted Drogon's shoulder. The dragon rumbled. A grating purr, then nudged her thigh like a hound begging run. Crew slacked moorings. Demon waters shouted final counts. Bells rang. Oars groaned in locks. Sails cracked, snapping to wind. Daenerys drew reins, guiding the courser up a ramp onto Seafoam Arrow's deck. Drogon vaulted after, claws clanking. Sailors froze mid-knot as 10,000 scaly pounds thumped timbers, but the ship held steady. Orannon's keel beams reinforced with bronze nails precisely for this moment. Clear of the harbor's lee, the fleet caught the outer breeze. Dragonstone's jagged silhouette receded, towers retreating like fortress-shaped shadows sliding beneath the sea's rim. From his window, Viserys watched until mist swallowed canvas-white triangles, then turned away, clutching quill too hard, snapping it. Days on the narrow sea melded into a rhythm of sails creaking, gulls squalling, and the hollow boom of waves under hull. When sun shone, it shone pale. When clouds mustered, slate skies pressed and spattered ice-tinged rain. The dragons delighted in the chill, particularly Rhaegal, who sometimes skimmed the wave tops, talons raking salt spray that crystallized to frosted edges along his wing bones before falling back into sea foam. Daenerys spent mornings astride Drogon above the fleet, scouting for threat. Twice she spied gray-painted patrol galleys hugging coast. A single roar sent them scuttling for shelter behind headlands. Afternoons she retired to the Seafoam's stern cabin, where maps of the northern coast lay weighted by chain links. Maester Kelvin taught her the swiftest route to Eastwatch by the sea, the only Night's Watch port accessible this side of the wall. Spectral tales of frozen cliffs rising from boiling waves captured her imagination like childhood stories before hearthfire. On the fifth dusk, while sails drooped in listless doldrum, a loner gull alighted on the starboard rail, strange only for the scrap of black ribbon tied about its leg. Sailors seized the bird. Beneath ribbon, a parchment scrap bore hastily scratched lines. King mortally wounded boar hunt. Lannister queen moves to seize regency. Storm brewing. No seal, no signature, yet ragged script matched escapades of a certain peddler Daenerys had bribed months before in King's Landing. She read thrice, heart thrumming. If Robert Baratheon lay dying, Westeros would break open like a rotten chestnut. Stannis would claim by right, Renly by charm, Joffrey by Lannister will. War of Crowns would ignite. She summoned Arain, Daemon, Kelvin, Shara to her cabin. They hovered round lantern, boat deck shifting beneath. If the boar's tusks ended the usurper, Daemon said, rubbing bearded chin, the lioness sinks claws while brothers circle. Crownlands will choke on smoke, Arain added. That may keep fleets anchored, giving us north unchallenged. Kelvin cautioned. Or war may thrust new king who courts the north anew, making our arrival appear opportunist. Daenerys considered hearth shadows dancing across timbers. Either way, we cannot turn south. Too much rides on Night's Watch plea. She flattened palm on table. We deliver aid, show our honor true. Then we judge realms fracture. Council consented. The gull was given crumb of biscuit, freed to wind. On the seventh day, land materialized, first a gray smudge, then serrated ridgeline. The Skagos Isles loomed starboard like fangs of some leviathan rising to gnaw world's rim. Orain ordered sails reefed. Currents beside those treacherous shoals could tear keel planks if careless. The fleet cut northwest channel between Skagos and mainland, hugging crooked bays where seals barked. Chill sharpened. Breath fogged even at midday. Decks rhymed slick. Sailors shuffled bundled in sealskin. Dragons grew restless, hindered by thin sunlight and frost that stiffened wing membranes. Daenerys fed them hot coals ladled from brazier urns. A trick gleamed from De Draconum Elementus. They lapped sparks like kittens sipping milk, heat restoring flexibility. That night, moonless and cold enough to freeze spit midair, Daenerys stood alone on forecastle. Seafoam Arrow's prow parted black water flecked by ghostly light from aurora shimmering far north, curtains of emerald fire dancing silent. She watched mesmerized until distant cry broke trance. Above, Drogon reeled, wings buffeted by sudden wind. Then she saw shapes. 3, maybe 4. Looming behind him, silhouettes of monstrous birds. No, wings broader, bodies larger. Wyverns? That would be impossible this far north. But as they banked, she glimpsed shaggy feathers, white and mottled gray, giant eagles carried by storm gale. One darted at Drogon, talons clashing sparks off his flank scale. Drogon roared, flame jetting. The eagle veered, singed. Another stooped at Viserion, pecking furiously. Rhaegal darted between, snapping eagle's wing with audible crack. Screech split night. Feather snow showered deck. Sailors yelled, arrows notched. Daenerys bellowed to hold. Dragons must fend themselves. They twisted and tore in midair, ballet of black and white. Quickly the eagles recognized imbalance. With last defiant shriek, they fled into night. Drogon chased 3 heartbeats, then wheeled victorious. One charred eagle carcass plummeted, striking wave with hiss. Dragons returned to deck, adrenaline steaming off hides. Daenerys stroked Drogon's scorched scale where talons scratched, but not pierced. Sky tests you, she whispered. Flame flickered gentle at his nostrils, like sigh of pride. Next day they sailed into Eastwatch Bay. Eastwatch by the sea, squatted dark beneath the wall's immense ice rampart. A castle dwarfed by a god-spawned mountain of frozen sky. Frost crusted every stone. Wind howled, whipping spindrift across wooden palisades. Black-cloaked men with crossbows lined battlements, tense until dragon shapes glided overhead, and Daenerys' banners snapped red-black in gusts. Even then, crossbows remained raised, fear shagged their beards. Seawater beyond lash ice floes hammered rocks. Seafoam arrow anchored as close as depth allowed. Longboats rode the final stretch, unsullied at oars. Dragons flew escort, casting shadows that swallowed the watchmen's oil lamps. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont awaited in the outer yard. Broad shoulders cloaked in snowcat pelt, left hand resting on pommel of a well-used longsword. Beside him stood a younger man, lean as pine, face half-veiled by hood, eyes dark, watchful. Ravens croaked from gallows posts overhead. When Daenerys' fur-lined boots hit packed snow, she felt Dragonstone's warmth vanish entirely, bone-deep chill knitting into marrow. She drew cloak close and approached. "Mormont," she greeted in common tongue. "You called and fire answered." Jeor Mormont studied her a long moment, eyes crinkled by both age and suspicion. Behind him, the younger man shifted, gaze flicking to dragons as if measuring some old half-remembered dream. "We called for aid," the old bear rumbled. "We did not know who might hear. Still, you come. We offer hospitality. Thin broth, thicker walls, both scarce these days." Daenerys' inclined head. "Hospitality offered is treasure. We accept gratefully." Mormont motioned. "This is First Ranger Benjen Stark." The hooded man lowered cowl, eyes gray as granite beneath black curls. He dipped a curt nod. Daenerys glimpsed likeness to Eddard Stark from stories, same solemn lines about mouth. Benjen spoke, voice low. "Ravens vanish south. Wildlings swarm south of the Frostfangs in fear. They speak of shadows with blue eyes. We have recovered bodies, men of the Watch returning dead to walk at night." Daenerys felt skin crawl, though she had braced for such tales. "And your supplies?" "Dwindling." Mormont gestured to a line of carts where her crews offloaded casks and crates. "Salted fish, grain, oil, arrow shafts, iron heads. Your relief will stay famine till spring, if spring ever truly returns." She produced parchment inventories. Kelvin supervised counting. Dragons roosted on ruined tower remains outside yard. Eat of their bare bellies carving steam tunnels in drifting snow. Black brothers gawked, some crossing themselves to 7, others muttering old first men oaths. That night, Mormont hosted Daenerys and leading captains in Eastwatch's dim hall. Smoke from peat hearth clung to rafters. Shields bearing direwolf, sunburst and crossed hammers decorated walls, though paint blistered beneath candle soot. Dew of barley and stringy goat filled trenchers. Sour beer warmed throats. Mormont spoke frankly. "We have 300 men where 600 once stood. Wildlings mass behind some king they call Mance Raider. Your timing may keep them at bay, yet winter itself is foe we cannot outwit." Daenerys answered, "Dragons fight cold as well as man. Position my children above Skirling Pass. Their flame can hold wild hordes." She paused. "But shadows with blue eyes, fire alone may not suffice. Tell me everything." "Better, near or nor." Benjen described patrol ambush. Corpses pale, eyes like shards of frozen dawn, swords of ice that did not melt. They slew 2 rangers. Dead men rose again. Only torches drove them back, burning bodies to gray ash that melted snow with acrid hiss. Shara murmured, "Demons of the far Votellans." My grandmother whispered of such in Bravos cradle tales. "It is truth now," Benjen said, tone flat. Maester Kelvin tugged beard. "Legend says dragonglass pierces creatures of night. We have obsidian spear tips, fashioned from Dragonstone's clips." "Deum." Daenerys' hand flew to pendant, obsidian eye. Fate curling again. She unclasped chain, placed pendant on table. "Have your smith split this," she said to Benjen. "Forge arrowheads. We bring more from our holds tomorrow." Mormont's brow shot up, respect softening suspicion. They drank night snow, a potent sour liquor, sealing packed. 3 days followed wherein dragons patrolled Wall's Rim, scorching whites that attempted midnight crossings near the gorge. Rhaegal strafed a cluster of dead bears animated by icy magic, their charred husks collapsed, snow sizzling. Viserion charred 2 pale figures dragging a screaming ranger toward treeline. Yet each more new silhouettes gathered at foothills. Silent, patient, waiting beyond Flame Re. Benjen rode back from ranging with cheeks rimed frost, reporting glimpses of gaunt shapes erecting timber mounds. Siege stakes? Purpose unclear. During daylight, Daenerys met wildling envoys under white flag beyond the frozen river. Tall spearwife with crow-black braid named Val claimed parley for king beyond the wall. She demanded safe passage south for her people. Not for conquest, but for life. Dead ride north winds. Daenerys listened, weighed. If she refused, hundreds, perhaps thousands, would press anyway, tearing by claw, if not allowed by door. If she allowed, northern lords might call her traitor to border shields. Yet compassion whispered that living deserved chance to fight dead. She told Val, "We will speak again after moonrise, buying time." Back in Eastwatch's hall, arguments erupted. Jeor Mormont balked at unvetted wildling crossing. Benjen urged caution but saw reason. If whites hunt them, more corpses feed dead army. Daenerys pondered flank by hearth. Flames sparked memory of Dothraki tribes crossing Red Waste behind her once. Seeking water, she faced Mormont. "We grant refuge under conditions. Wildlings surrender weapons on crossing, serve at work of Wall's defense. We resettle them beyond Gift's first farms. Men of Night's watch over sea. No blood feud." She looked at Kelvin. He nodded. Agricultural records showed abandoned crofts near Queen's Crown could house many if rebuilt. Benjen offered himself to escort first migration. Mormont reluctantly yielded. They wrote a cord on calfskin, sealed with Night's Watch black wax and Daenerys' red-black dragon. Val accepted terms at next meet, eyes cool but grateful. Meanwhile, word from the south arrived via Raven. King Robert dead. Joffrey crowned. Eddard Stark arrested, Riverlands aflame. 7 kingdoms bent toward war. Daenerys studied message by torchlight in Eastwatch's small reading chamber. Storm outside rattled shutterboards. Beyond those boards the wall groaned like old Titan as wind battered ice. The realm's chaos swelled. She traced sentence about Stark's chaining, heart aching for a man she never met, but whose honor rumored bright. She imagined his son Robb rallying northern banners even now. She whispered to Silent Room, "If I return south with dragons, whose banners shall burn." There was no joy in thought, only gravity. Shara entered, bearing wrapped bundle. More dragonglass points forged from pendant shards. She paused, reading Queen's mood. "Fire cuts many chains," she said gently. Daenerys pocketed message, turned to window slit. Snow danced luminous against night, swirling like feathers of those eagles. Dragons roared distant. She let sound steady her. "We gather allies in living first," she said. "Then we answer iron crowns." As moon waxed to full, the first column of wildlings, 1,500 souls, moved south under Benjen's guard. They passed below Eastwatch gates at dawn. Gaunt men shouldering children, spearwives carrying bundled hides, elders muttering thanks. Their eyes widened when dragons swooped overhead, yet no panic. They had seen stranger horrors. Rhaegal flew vanguard, belching short flame bursts to clear path of whites hidden among drift-buried stumps. Unsullied closed rear, shields locked shining. Daenerys rode at Column's heart, atop the black courser. Snow crunched, swirling knee-high. She kept cloak tight, but even layered furs could not banish cold that chewed bones. Still she pressed, talking with Val about her people's traditions. Clan songs, bear dances under green sky, tales of giants lost to melting peaks. In turn Daenerys recounted Valyria's doom, Dothraki steppes, the Red Waste. Two women, worlds apart, yet both forged in exile. At Fen of Icebrook, the first stone watchhouse inside Gift, they halted. Abandoned, roof sagging under iced beams, yet walls intact. Wildlings scraped shoveled snow, patched leaks, kindled hearths. Children squealed at heat, faces bright for first time in memory. Daenerys oversaw distribution of dried fish and oatcakes from wagons. A graybeard named Craster, smell of goat urine clinging, spat suspicion but accepted broth bowl. That night she and Benjen scouted ridge overlooking woods. Moon-silvered snowfields, distant shapes, dead, perhaps, lurked among pines. Benjen handed her spyglass. Through frosted lens she spied a line of gaunt forms kneeling before a figure astride a pale horse whose mane shimmered like hoarfrost. Eyes glowed blue in skull face. Horror pricked. The figure raised ice-shaped spear, pointed south as if acknowledging her gaze. Benjen's jaw tightened. Others test our wall. He looked at her. Fire Mother, can dragons hold them? Dragons will try, she said, voice steady though fear trembled deep. Morning brought clearer skies and grim work. Report came of White Pack, striking supply wagons 2 miles north. 6 men slain, bodies missing. Daenerys, Benjen, and 20 rangers followed Rhaegal to scene. Snow churned, hoofprints frozen. They found empty wagons, splintered crates, torn harness, and one corpse, immobile, eyes blue ice. It leapt when approached, slashing Benjen's companion in thigh. Daenerys shouted Valyrian word. Rhaegal dove, bathing creature in emerald fire. Flesh ignited, shriek keened, ashes hissed. The ranger died of wound, ice blades toxin traveling faster than any healer's salve. They burned his body. Each flame gust carried faint, sickly screams, haunting. Expertise taught quickly. Whites feared fire, shattered by dragon glass, moved silent as frost. Daenerys armed wildling scouts with obsidian daggers. She trained them in dragon signal whistles for air support. Weeks unfolded in blur of sorties. Dragons scorched white pockets along riverbeds, rescuing rangers pinned to trees. Daenerys flew daily, voice hoarse, but heart fierce. She named storms, counted breaths visible like spirits leaving mouths, tasted blood of chapped lips. Behind lines, Kelvin and knights watched blacksmith Donal Noy forged spearheads of dragonglass fused into iron sockets. A new weapon, unsullied, drilled with them, stabbing straw dummies until shards flew. Gradually white incursions thinned. Wildlings reported others withdrawing deeper into haunted forests. Whether routed by dragonfire or regrouping, none could say. When first thaw hints tugged ice in river seams, still months before southern spring, Jor Mormont summoned Daenerys to Eastwatch Hall. Fire crackled large. He produced bone horn carved with spirals. Night's Watch returns you this thanks, he said, extending horn. Blown atop walls, it calls ravens home and warns keepers of breach. I trust dragons need no call. Yet you may find use. Daenerys accepted, running thumb along carvings. I pray we need not warn again, but if we must, horns will answer fire. Benjen clasped her forearm. When you ride south, send word bright if realm begs help. You have brothers in black now. She smiled. And you dragons. They shared solemn farewell. Fleet reloaded at Eastwatch docks with barrels of smoked seal meat, black snowberries, and casks of Night's Watch ale. Bitterness, tempered smoke. Wildlings remaining at Gift, waved spears as sails unfurled. Daenerys watched wall recede until nothing but a silver-blue knife's edge remained on horizon. She felt changed, cooled, sharpened. The realm south burned with petty crowns while true night prowled just beyond. She vowed to hammer that lesson into every lord when she returned. But first remained reckoning at Dragonstone. Viserys uncertain, realm shattered. Ravens already perched on Seafoam's rigging bearing fresh tidings. Edmure Tully called banners, Robb Stark marched, Renly crowned at Storm's End. Stannis sailed who knew where with Red Priestess rumored. Game of Thrones flared anew. She stood at prow, Drogon curled behind mast, wings unfurled to gather sun that finally felt warm after weeks of knife wind. Owain approached. Home in 8 days if winds hold. Daenerys nodded. Home. Then destiny. Owain smirked. Destiny seldom waits idle. Below deck, Shara polished new dragon-glass spearheads, humming Braavosi lullaby. ... Kelvin penned Chronicles of the Northern Accord, scattering sand to dry ink as hull rocked gently. Daemon oversaw pitch brushing on hull seams, muttering to bosun about Lannister galleys rumored near Crackclaw. Evening fell. Daenerys climbed rigging to top mast crosstree, hair whipping. She lifted Night's Watch horn and let one low note roll across wine-dark waves. It sounded like farewell and promise fused. Drogon answered with roar that shook sails. On distant horizon, lightning flickered amber, summer storm forging in south. She felt its hum, even welcome challenge. Fly, she whispered into wind. Fly far until world remembers dawn. And wind obeyed, filling sails, pushing fleets southward toward brewing wars, and a throne no longer made only of iron but of fire, ice, and fragile hopes, bound by dragon wings. Ika. And to me, the wind that bore the fleet southward carried more than salt spray and the cries of gulls. It carried knowledge, a new breath to Daenerys' lungs, a sharper resonance in each beat of her heart, and the sober memory of ice-blue eyes that never blinked. When the sea foam arrow at last crossed from the chill currents of the shivering sea, back into the milder green of the narrow sea, she felt the shift like the lifting of an iron yoke, yet the yoke had left its imprint. She would never forget the wall's silent immensity, the hush of snowfall broken by claws of the risen dead, or the mingled gratitude and terror in the wildlings' eyes as they crossed south beneath dragonfire. On the 8th morning, Aurora's pale sheen fading behind them, a gull screamed from the topmast. Owain Valerian emerged onto the quarterdeck, teeth white in a grin. Land sighted, Dragonstone sails at dusk, she called. Deckhands cheered, boots thudding on planks. Daenerys stood at the rail, the wind tumbling silver hair about her face, and let her eyes roam the horizon. A plume of distant smoke curled skyward. The volcano's breath, unmistakable. Home. Rhaegal and Viserion rose first, winging ahead to herald their approach. Drogon climbed higher, black wings outtracing shadow, and Daenerys felt the tugs of his joy echo in her ribs. He pitched into a steep stoop, plummeting toward Dragonstone's sea gate. From this far out she saw fishermen's boats scatter at his passage, oars flashing frantic. A shadow in the sky had become the mark of safety for Dragonstone's folk. For outsiders, it remained a thing of legend and dread. Yet when dusk fell and seafoam arrow rounded the fanged rocks that marked the island's jaws, Daenerys saw at once that all was not as she had left it. 2 unfamiliar warships rode at anchor within the outer roadstead. Sleek Myrish galleys painted crimson along the strakes, their raked masts trimmed with gold leaf. On their yards fluttered banners not of stag nor lion, but of a great red lily on white silk. Florent, she thought at first, but the lily's petals were 5-pointed, each tipped in gold. Tyrell. Owain's brows knit. Storm's End surrendered to Renly months past. If Tyrell sails, they sail for his crown. Daenerys' fingers closed on the rail. Even so, this is my harbor. Let us see what suitor thinks to court dragons without leave. Then, they furled sail and dropped anchor short of the unfamiliar hulls. Longboats splashed, oars creaking. On the quay, torches bobbed amid a bustle of figures. Valyrian cloaks mingled with Tyrell livery of green and gold. And standing tall among them, unmistakable in polished emerald armor, chased with vines, was Sir Loras Tyrell. The rain-slick stones of the pier shone like black glass beneath torchlight. Fire hissed where fat wood snapped, spitting sparks into the breeze. Sir Loras stepped forward as Daenerys dismounted, bowing with theatrical flourish. Behind him marched half a dozen retainers clad in Tyrell colors, each bearing a polished chest bound with brass. Valyrian marines kept wary distance, hands resting on sword hilts, while Dragonstone's garrison watched from the seawall. bows strung, eyes bright. "Your Grace," Loras said, voice warm and confident. "The Reach bids you welcome. 200 barrels of arbor gold, 300 of wheat, 50 casks of honey, and with them, an invitation." Daenerys studied him. Youth and beauty clung to him like dew to rose petals. Even sea mist could not dull that easy grace infused into every motion. Yet she saw tension in the set of his jaw, a flicker in his gaze as it darted to the sky where Drogon circled. She let the silence stretch. "Invitation?" she echoed at last. "To High Garden," he said, producing a sealed parchment. The wax bore the stag and the rose entwined. "A crown for Renly Baratheon. My king and future queen desire alliance. Renly Baratheon rules from the Whispering Wood to the Arbor Marches, yet he knows the realm bleeds. He would bind dragon to lily, fire to flower, and end these wars before winter gnaws its bones." Now, behind Daenerys, Aurane scoffed under her breath. Daenerys herself inclined her head, accepting the parchment, but not breaking seal. "You cross half a realm's war-torn seas to offer gifts without knowing how dragons will answer. That is bold, Sir Loras." Loras's smile widened. "Boldness built Highgarden's walls, and I do not come ignorant." He gestured to one chest. A squire sprang forward, lifting the lid. Within, cradled in velvet, lay a spear point of dragonglass affixed to an ash shaft. The shape mirrored those Eastwatch forges had just begun to turn out, yet the craftsmanship here was peerless, the obsidian polished to mirror sheen, runes of the Reach inlaid with gold leaf. "A sample of 10,000 we will forge for you from the Dragonmon's own obsidian," Loras said. "Should you honor us with your presence? The Reach boasts the finest glass rights alive." Daenerys felt the weight of the wall behind her eyelids. 10,000 such weapons could arm every ranger on the wall, every wildling refugee, every farmer conscript the North might raise. She set the spear carefully back into the chest. "Your message is received," she said. "You will have my answer after council." Loras bowed again, genteel. "We have quarters aboard our ships. My king trusts your hospitality, yet we trespass not a pace beyond invitation." His deference, edged with courtly charm, did little to mask calculation. Daenerys raised a hand, and Valyrian marines escorted the Tyrell party back to their gangplanks. Only after the last helm dipped below bulwark did she let shoulders rise in long inhale. Aurane stood beside her. If Renly hopes Dragonfire breaks Lannisters for him, he underestimates both. "Perhaps," Daenerys said, eyes on the shut chests. Even sealed, she felt lure of that polished glass, the only stone that felled whites. Or perhaps he overestimates his own safety, knowing what hunts beyond the wall. She turned toward the gates where watchfires flared. "Summon small council. We decide before dawn." In the painted table chamber, the map absorbed candlelight like green water, coasts shimmering. It felt smaller than the night she had first unwrapped the dragon eggs here, a lifetime ago, though moon turns were few. Kelvin, Orane, Daemon, Shara, and 2 newly raised commanders joined her. Conspicuously absent was Viserys. By her order he remained under gentle guard in his tower, though reports said he paced day and night. Daemon laid out reckoning. Joffrey holds King's Landing with Lannister gold. Stannis' fleet vanished. Spies place him near Dragonstone's old passages, but no sail sighted in weeks. Robb Stark pushes south. Renly Baratheon rules the Reach and Stormlands with Tyrell backing. Sellsword Talk claims Ironborn gather longships. He tapped wooden dragon figurines to match each. "If we march south with dragons now, we decide the war," Shara interjected. "Decide for whom?" She pointed to Tyrell's sigil. "Renly offers alliance only if we bend dragons to his crown. Others will try same soon." Kelvin thumbed beard. "We must choose the lesser clash. Which king heeds warning of others? Which feeds the wall?" "The young wolf knows winter," Daenerys murmured. "But his lords see dragons and recall burning by Aerys." She traced riverlands. "Stannis honors oaths yet binds himself to Red Priestess none here trust." Aurane pivoted to her. "Or we make no king. Claim throne ourselves. Aegon conquered with 3 grown beasts. You wield 3 near adulthood. Another year, and they eclipse towers." Daemon's brow arched. Robb Stark wins battles, but lords desert fast if Queen of Dragons lands at Duskendale promising grain. Take King's Landing before Lannister's cement rule. Kelvin turned eyes to her. But Winter's War remains. Only South Surplus can feed North in Night's Watch. Sooner or later, food must flow one way. Then, candles guttered in a draft as if the chamber itself sighed. Daenerys stood, cloak sweeping. We do not chain dragons to any throne but realm's peace. She set palms on the table near the Heartlands. We will ride to Renly's camp. Hear his terms, but bend knee to none. If he shares food and smiths for dragonglass, we treat. If not, we leave him to his war. Daemon blew breath. A parley under banners of truce may be trap. Trap for what? Shara smiled thinly. Even Tyrell ambition balks at killing queen whose winged hounds blacken sky. Daenerys nodded. Dragons attend me. A knot of guards. No host to provoke. She looked to Arain. Prepare Seafoam Arrow. We sail at dawn. The reach lies west of Storm's End by river. But by sea we skirt Gullet, land at Bitterbridge where Renly gathers. Arain snapped crisp salute. Winds, favorable. Kelvin coughed lightly. And Prince Viserys. Silence. Daenerys felt its chill. He remains. Dragonstone must hold with him seated in council. He commands garrison. But Shara, you stay. Oversight. Shara bowed. It will be so. Yet she met Daenerys' gaze with flicker of concern. They both knew the risk. Send ravens north, Daenerys finished. Jeor Mormont must hear of any gain in dragonglass. And to Robb Stark, message of greeting, reassurance wildlings now defend lands. Whites burned back. Let him weigh our part. Plans set. Council dissolved. Outside, dawn's palest thread glowed behind Dragonmont's silhouette. Sleep could not find Daenerys, yet she climbed tower stairs whose turns she knew by feel, until she reached a parapet overlooking the boiling surf. Far below, hulks of Tyrell ships rocked at anchor like lions, napping among gulls. Drogon perched on the tower's highest spire. Silent sentinel. She closed eyes and shared his vista. Vast black sea. Constellations fading. Somewhere across that water the others marshaled cold legions. Somewhere south, a boy king clutched crown too heavy. She whispered into morning breeze. Valyrian syllables older than Dragonstone. Zaldrizes Buzdari Ixos Daur. A dragon is not a slave. Drogon stretched wings. In that silent converse he felt his answer. A canyon-deep tremor of loyalty bound by flame and blood, not ownership, but partnership. Below, another figure stepped onto adjoining parapet. Viserys. Guards lingered behind at wary distance. He wore plain wool cloak. Silver hair, unbound. Shadows clung to hollows beneath eyes. Sister, he called softly across gap. Doat, you ride to woo roses. Parley, she corrected. Not woo. He leaned on the stone. Take me with you. A request, not command. She heard plea in it. I will not fail again. Let Tyrell see king and queen stand united. She weighed. Danger if left, danger if brought. Yet in his voice lay sincerity she had not heard since childhood memories of Bravos rooftops. You will ride, she said at last, on my left. His breath caught. He bowed head. Wear no crown, she added. Let deeds speak first. Viserys nodded. When he looked up, she saw a reflection of dawn's first rose-gold flame in his eyes, and hope that might yet temper steel still forging within him. They sailed at dawn's full glow. Seafoam Arrow, summer gale, and a single Myrish galley loaned by Loras to speed parley. Dragons skimmed waves. Cowled figures watched from seawall. Some small folk, some gold cloaks a visiting Tyrell envoy. Shara lifted wine cup in silent farewell. Daenerys answered with incline of head. 2 days' swift sail carried them through the gullet, hugging isles of driftmark where Valyrian pennants dipped in salute atop stone lightwork towers. Arain remained to muster fleet. Daenerys pressed on in the Myrish galley seas-worn with Viserys, Kelvin, 30 unsullied, and the dragons overhead. The Mander's broad mouth opened like green silk carpet unfurling toward heart of the reach. Renly's banners lined banks for miles. Stags rampant entwined with roses, field tents bright as festival pavilions. Horns blew greeting. Cheers rippled as shadow of dragons passed. Daenerys rode her courser ashore, visories at flank, unsullied behind in even step. They advanced beneath braided arches of willow where flower girls scattered petals, Renly's court flair undeniable, even in war camp. At Bitterbridge's meadow, a vast marquee rose mid-field, its silken canopy hued deep forest green. Knights in gilded plate flanked entrance, swords sheathed. Loras met them, bowing, roses fresh tucked behind ear. Within marquee smelled of cedar and crushed mint. Torch sconces gilded columns. Renly Baratheon reclined on cushioned chair of carved oak. Beside him stood Margaery Tyrell, gown of dawn-pink silk, smile demure yet eyes sharp. As Daenerys entered, they rose, courtly perfection. Queen of Dragons, Renly boomed, arms wide. He looked little like Robert in girth, but much in grin, a handsome youth's vigor. King Renly welcomes fire's rebirth. Daenerys inclined head, but did not kneel. Viserys remained at her side, chin lifted. Renly gestured to table where issued maps lay under crystal weights shaped as lilies. Sit. We share bread first. Servants poured arbor gold, placed honey cakes, cheeses. Daenerys took token bites. Loras stood behind Renly's right, hand rest on sword hilt that mirrored sunbeam. Renly spoke with easy warmth. Your dragons char northern sky. Rumor says others fled. Realm owes you thanks. Yet, realm teeters. Joffrey feasts on cruelty. Stannis stews in shadows. Robb Stark would shrink south to Wolfden and drag winter behind him. Knights and small folk alike cry for peace. Peace I will forge. But I cannot melt gold lions without dragonfire. Dan and Dadder. Margaery laid slender palm on her husband's wrist. Nor can any queen feed realm without fertile reach. Together, we stitch wounds. She turned to Daenerys. We offer alliance by treaty. Tyrell granaries open north. Stormlanders man walls. Dragons clear Lannister lines. Throne seats King Renly, while the Dragon Queen rules east of Blackwater, free to remake Dragonstone and Crownlands as she deems. Your brother may govern as prince. Viserys' breath hissed. Daenerys sipped wine, tasting notes of pear and oak, fine vintage for fine words. Lannisters break on swords before dragons, she said calmly. But winter's war demands more than banners. What of the wall? The dead gather still. Grain must flow not just to south armies but north villages. Renly shrugged. The north chose Robb. Let him feed his kingdom. Daenerys set cup down. Kingdoms end at wall's shadow. When dead march again, your flowery fields will frost and your harvest rot. Silence. Loras's smile thinned. Renly's jovial mask slipped a fraction. Then he laughed. Wave of teeth and clapped hands. You speak as Stark's raven. Very well, we send grain, after Crown's rule restored. No. Viserys stepped forward, voice low. You forget Crown's true line sits here. Renly's gaze hardened. The Iron Throne was lost to your father's madness. Realm's peace outranks lost causes. Daenerys raised hand, forestalling retort. I did not cross wild sea to trade one usurper for another, she said. I came to hear if the Reach stands with life against death. If your war blinds you, dragons will not fight it. Margaery's eyes narrowed just so. You threaten refusal? I promise choice, Daenerys answered. Give me ships of grain, smiths for dragonglass, and pledge troops to wall. In return, dragons will burn Lannister forges and open path to King's Landing, leaving the city to your mercy, provided small folk spared. Renly folded arms. You bargain like merchant. I bargain like king. Dragons serve realm, or serve none. Viserys' hand fell to sword hilt. Loras's fingers brushed Roseguard. Atmosphere tense like bowstring drawn. Daenerys rose slowly. Then none, it is. She bowed shallow, turned. Behind her, servants gasped as flamelite flickered, the dragon's shadow crossing canvas roof. Margaery's voice, soft yet edged, followed. Consider wisely, your grace. Alone you face South Banner storms. Daenerys paused at entrance. Storms break on cliffs of fire. She stepped into sunlight. Outside, Rhaegal swooped low, gust ripping petals from garlands. Knights scattered. Horses screamed. Unsullied closed. Spears angled. Viserys mounted his black gelding, jaw tight. In camp lanes, men whispered. Some knelt as she passed, awe in eyes. Others spat blessing signs, fearing witches. Daenerys ignored all, mind humming. Tyrell refused. War of lions and stags would grind many. The realm still needed food. Another way. They bivouacked that night on a green hill half a league downstream, outside bowshot of Renly's lines. Dragons nested among apple orchard ruins, crunching brittle limbs. Kelvin distributed campfires sparse, mindful of sentries. Viserys paced, cloak billowing. We should have burned his marquee, he snarled. Show him whose blood binds flame. Fire unmeasured burns allies, Daenerys said, seating by low fire. We need reach grain regardless of king. We take it, he answered. Dragons seize a high garden, small folk bow. After fields blaze. She shook head. Dead men feel no hunger. Living will? We will not scorch breadbasket. Viserys' hand trembled on sword pommel. You speak of mercy while he spits on claim. I speak of victory bigger than throne. He turned away, frustration crackling like drying leaves. Later, as camp quieted, Daenerys walked orchard lanes. Moonlight, silvered frost on abandoned fruit. The scent of apples sweetened the chill. She found Drogon perched atop stone wall, tail twitching. Beyond the wall, down slope, a lone figure approached. Sir Loras, unarmed save for cloak of rose and stag halves. He halted at wall's base, eyes lifted to Dragon perched above. A private word, he called gently. No blades. Daenerys stepped from behind Drogon's shoulder. Speak. Loras's expression held frank resolve. We misjudged breadth of your cause. Renly's council sees only throne. I see horizon you describe. Winter of corpses. If I sway king to supply grain north, will dragons pledge to spare reach fields and protect them against ironborn raids? Surprise pricked. You speak for reach? I speak for my conscience, he said, hands open. Margaery rules Renly's ear. She can move him if outcome secures Tyrell legacy. Drogon snorted, smoke drifting. Loras did not flinch this time. Daenerys held gaze. Secure it with life, not politics, she said. Convince Renly to pledge half his harvest to Night's Watch now, no matter crown. Dragons guard his caravans. In return, Reach becomes first kingdom recognized when realm reunites. Under whose king? Under peace, she answered. If Renly births that peace, dragons need not burn him. Loras swallowed. I will counsel as I can. But know this. Tyrell wills rarely bow without blossom of profit. Then remind them nothing blooms beneath endless night. He bowed once, turned into mist. When his footfalls vanished, Viserys stepped from shadows of gnarled tree. You traffic with rose knights in orchard? He hissed. Eavesdropping profits none, she replied tiredly. He crossed arms. Renly's camp steeps in lies. I won't let roses pluck our fire. She faced him. Trust is earned. We test them. He stared, moon glint in violet eyes. Something shifted in his resolve. Test, he repeated softly, then walked away. Morn saw banner riders from Renly with revised offer. 300 wagons of grain to Eastwatch within fortnight. Pledge of 50 Tyrell glass rights to Dragonstone. Safe passage for wildling families through riverlands. If dragons escort his host toward King's Landing within month. No demand of kneeling. Merely escort. Daenerys considered beside Kelvin. Dragons escort does not mean dragons fight Lannister. Kelvin observed. But lions will see threat. She sent word back. Escort granted. Dragons will fly above route to ensure small folk protected. Dragons will not besiege city without cause. Grain first, smiths first, then escort. Renly agreed. For 14 days, wagons rolled from Highgarden northward, guarded by Reach spearmen and unsullied detachments. Dragons skimmed overhead. Small folk cheered. Half-believing harvest goddesses walked sky. Wildling farmhands marched alongside, awe and fear mingling. Eastwatch ravens confirmed first convoy arrival. Storerooms filled. Black brothers singing praise. During those days, Viserys kept mostly to himself. He trained with unsullied spearmasters. Sweat, steaming in morning chill. Once Daenerys approached. He paused, panting. Edges of frustration softened to quiet determination. "Her eagle watches me," he said. "Perhaps he learns my scent." "Perhaps," she answered. She sparred with him that afternoon. His strikes were swift, but she parried calmly. Between blows they shared smiles reminiscent of younger days. Yet beneath, tension coiled. When Renly's grain commitment fulfilled, the allied host broke camp. 20,000 Tyrell spearmen. 15,000 Stormlanders. Banners rippling west wind. They marched east along Rosarad. Dragons sailed sky. Daenerys, Viserys, and a wing of Unsullied rode at Column's heart. On 7th March Day, word came. Stannis' fleet, augmented by Lysine pirate ships, had seized Storm's End after Nightstorm, its garrison fallen to shadow rumor. Renly's visage whitened. "My brother nips lily stems," he growled. Camp buzzed. Plans wavered. That night, in Royal Pavilion, Margaery sought Daenerys. Candles bled vanilla scent. "My king's heart turns from crown to grief," she confided. He would rush to Storm's End. Dragons could win gates back before dawn. Daenerys shook head. "Dragons fly not for vengeance. Stannis fights for same throne. Your war, not mine." Margaery's smile froze. "Then, what good are you?" "Ask the wall that lives," Daenerys said and turned away. Margaery's jewels chimed faintly as fists clenched. Next dawn, disaster bloomed. Renly's host roused early, dew diamonds on grass. Knights armed, horns blew to form ranks. Yet as sun blossomed, a deeper red flood spread across camp. Wagons ablaze, store tents shredded, men coughing black smoke. Outriders reported. Lannister outriders joined with Sellsword vanguard, had struck in darkness, loosing wildfire casks stolen from King's Landing cellars. 2,000 men dead, supplies aflame. Amid confusion, Lannister banners withdrew west, laughing. Renly fumed, voice hoarse as he shouted orders. Tyrell captains cursed, scurrying to douse. Viserys stood with unsullied, face lit by distant flame, eyes cold. "Lannister taunts," he said to Daenerys. Joffrey sent message, "Bend knee or burn." She stared at green flaming plumes. Screams tore air. Drogon roared overhead, but flame below mocked his. Enough. She sought Renly near Command Ridge. "Host reels," she said. "Withdraw to Bitterbridge. Dragons cover retreat. Gather food anew." Renly spat ash. "Retreat? And gift my brother's city? No, we march. Dragons burn those lions tonight. Not without grain," she warned, "nor after wildfire soaks fields." He dismissed with oath. Daenerys returned to her circle. Decision formed, the hardest yet. She called to Viserys, Kelvin, Loras, summoned quickly. Margaery arrived unbidden. "I withdraw dragons," she announced. Gasps flew. "Duck. Renly rides vengeance, not realm. I will not tie flame to hunger. We return Dragonstone. Forge dragonglass. Send grain north ourselves." Loras stammered, eyes darting to Margaery. She paled, then straightened. "That breaks pact." So did Renly when he refused caution, Daenerys answered cool. Viserys studied her, then bowed head slowly. "Support." Margaery's mouth tightened. "The Reach will remember this abandonment." Daenerys met her gaze. "Remember too, that dragons could have ravaged your fields but did not." She turned, striding away. Behind, Margaery's whisper floated. "One day we may not ask." Later, As camp chaos settled into sullen marching prep, Daenerys mounted Drogon. Rhaegal and Viserion joined. Unsullied column formed. Tyrell soldiers parted, unease rippling. Renly emerged, face ashen. "You leave? I warned of night that devours all," she said. "Do not force dragons to choose between crowns." He stared, fury mixing with helplessness. She saw fear edge his pupils, the first crack in easy grin. She dipped head, then signaled lift. Dragons winged southeast, tail of ships on Mander below. Grain fires still smoldered, smoke pillars marking folly of king's games. Daenerys felt weight heavier than iceblade. They lost months of unity, yet hope remained. Dragonglass forges on Dragonstone, fleets she could build, the North's gratitude. On second flight day, as they camped near Coastal Bluff, Viserys approached where she warmed hands at Tiny Colton. Stars glittered cold overhead, waves thunder below. He crouched. "You step from thrones of men," he said. "Yet still you wear crown in hearts." She looked at him. He drew from cloak a small pouch. Within lay shards of obsidian, black glass shimmering violet. "Rhaegal gifted these," he said softly. "Dropped from cliff where he gnawed rock. I gathered." She smiled, touched shards. "Thank you." "I learn," he continued. "Dragons choose not for blood, but being. I will earn." She pressed hand to his cheek. He closed eyes, tears slipping. Forgiveness, fragile as dawn. Hovered. Before dawn broke, Raven arrived, black wax of night's watch. Dead advance East Gorge. Grain convoy repelled. "Need fire." Daenerys folded note. The realm south burned, but north again called. She inhaled salt air, rose and looked north, though miles lay between. "We answer," she whispered. Viserys rose beside, nodding. Dragons shrieked greeting to sun's first blade of light. Months later, the bards would argue over the exact dawn that birthed the Age of Return. The era when living men set aside crowns to fight for dawn. Some would name the burning of Ragged Ridge, others the truce signed at Wolf's Den. Yet men of the Wall, and the wildlings who stood with them, would date it to the morning a raven returned, bearing one simple promise etched in sure lines across stiff vellum. "Flame returns. Hold one more night." They did. And when the triple horn blew across the frosted river, dragons answered, wings eclipsing pale sun, fire painting ice with molten gold. Before that dawn ended, the dead's vanguard lay ash, snowfields glassed black. The living stood, ragged but unbowed, beneath a sky where a queen's silhouette rode black dragon, silver hair blazing, her brother on green shadow beside, and a pallid third beast circling wide. A horn note pealed again, Eastwatch's gift, and the ravens scattered north, south, east, west, bearing word that dragons had chosen not throne of iron, but realm of blood and breath. For now. And beneath those beating wings, hearts stirred, fear, hope, wonder, like coals ready for flame. Far south, in Highgarden's quiet solar, Marguerite Tyrell would set down that raven's scroll and know at last that roses could not bind fire forever. They could only choose whether to bloom beside it or be consumed. And in King's Landing, where a boy king played with crossbow while his mother plotted, distant thunder would rattle stained glass as if storm approached, though sky remained clear. Not storm. Wings. On Dragonstone the volcano's breath thickened, magma stirring deeper. Smiths stoked forges day and night, obsidian spearheads piling in crates. Small folk sang as they labored, a new song carried from north to coast. A wordless hum like beating wings over falling snow. Daenerys Targaryen banked Drogon into rising sun, eyes on horizon where ice met sky. War of Thrones waited. But first, she would finish this war of dawn. And the realm would learn, if it wished to stand beneath stars again, to raise eyes higher than iron crowns, toward the fire that lit night's vast emptiness, toward dragons soaring, and the silver flame of a queen who had walked through snow and sea to guard them all.